Hey guys, the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for November 13, 2024. We're going to be doing the Week 11 NFL picks against the spread for the 2024 NFL season this episode. So before I intro our co-host for tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. We both have merch on today. I have my November is Gluttony, or Sloth Month, rather not Gluttony, Sloth Month, of course. And Evan here has his green Walter Football shirt. You can get both of those and more at the merch store. We currently have a 20% off sale right now. So right here is the November is Sloth Month. We celebrate all 7 deadly sins, of course. And then we have our new shirt, Make Garbage Great Again. We have a lot of shirts here and a mug too. Again, 20% off. So any purchase here would really help us. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. We've had some great ones. Slew, John Sanders. You guys have primarily been the greatest help here. Also, recently we had Justice Cintron, Anthony, and a host of others. So if you guys really want to help support the show, that's the way to do it, because I could just go outside right now, collect some change on the street, and that'll equal what we get off of YouTube ads, because they pay nothing. So if you guys want to help, that's the way to do it. Also, you can go to Amazon, buy my books. My most recent one is Jerks of the College Years. Where I just made fun of people that I saw throughout my 6 years at Penn State. And also you can get my second book, How the 2020 MVP Was Stolen, which is the untold story about how Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers' 2020 MVP. All right, so we are joined tonight by Evan Daniel. Evan, how was your week 10?
Yeah, week 10 started off pretty good. Ultimately finished 3-2 in both contests. That was frustrating. And we talked about this. When you start these new contest mini weeks, it's always exciting to start 5-0 and really kind of feel like you have a shot. So I started 3-0 in each super contest and circa, and then fell victim to Washington, who didn't, obviously lost in the end. Even if they kicked a late field goal, they wouldn't have covered. And then I lost the Rams last night, which I was really high on the Rams last night. Did not understand the line. Didn't understand the line when it dropped from 2.5 to 1 midweek, and then obviously came back last night towards 2.5, and they were horrible last night. So 3-2, not great. Hopefully we can get back on track, and now 3-2, there's no room for error. So now we need to go 5-0 and to have a shot in third the week of the mini.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those who don't know, the Super Contest runs these mini contests. They have 6 3-week contests. They have 3 6-week contests, and they have 2 9-week contests. So last week was the beginning of a new 3-week contest and the final or the second and final 9-week contest. So that's why it's so important here. So I also went 3-2 in my super contest entry. And as Sue was talking about, Darnold and Moody are off the Christmas list. Actually, Minnesota covered in the super contest because the line was only 4.5. But Jake Moody, 1 of 3, and then the Niners muff a punt to give the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a free touchdown. The Niners gained 3.1 yards more per play than the Buccaneers. just absurd. I can't believe what happened. But as you said before we started recording, the Niners have done this all year. So maybe.
And I was on the other side of that game, and I tell you this every week, and I'll tell you later. The Niners are one of the worst special teams that I've seen in a long time. And at some point, it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of randomness. But when it happens week in, week out, you have to start to factor in the fact that they muff punts. They don't field. They don't cover kicks or punts well. And they have a kicker whom they wasted draft capital on who can't make kicks. There's absolutely no confidence. I'd rather call Jake Bates, who was selling bricks, according to Chris Collinsworth a year ago. The guy comes off the street, and he's nailing 58, 60 yards, in pressure situations. Moody happened to have been very good in the Super Bowl, but he's completely lost confidence. And if they didn't waste the draft pick on him, I would have cut him. And the guy can't make a kick. He's causing guys to fight on the sideline. So you have to start factoring these things into the handicap week in, week out when it's become consistent.
Yeah, Bates literally. I mean, he was working for the Acme Brick Company. It's like literally selling bricks to Wile E. Coyote. Like I don't like. Where did this guy come from? Like, couldn't the Niners get him? Then they have Matthew Wright or something like that who came in.
Yeah, they had White Wright a couple weeks ago. They signed him, and then they signed who's the guy from the Packers last year who was cut because the guy missed 5 extra points.
Anders Carlson. Anders Carlson. Is that it?
Was it Carlson? No, I don't think so.
For the
I'm
Packers.
forgetting the name. I'm drawing a blank now on the name, but guy missed an extra point. He missed 5 extra points last year. You signed him off the street. What do you think he was going to do? He actually made his field goals, but he missed an extra point, and he's gone. I can't imagine there aren't 32 human beings on the planet who can't kick a field goal. I mean, come on. I mean, there's got to be a bunch of soccer guys somewhere internationally who can come in and make field goals.
Yeah.
And it becomes mental. So if the guy can't make a kick and he's got the yips, cut him. Find Jake Bates, who comes in and makes 58-yarders. Even Justin Tucker this year, he can't kick anymore. He lines up to make a kick. It's like you lost all confidence in him. It's all mental with these guys. So, but you have to start factoring that in because, yeah, you miss a kick. You know, these big kicks, especially for teams like the Niners that love to kick a field goal, it's going to cost them in big games. So it's important to have somebody who can rely on. At least anything under 50 has to be 99%, has to be automatic. If the guy's not feeling it, it's got to be cut.
Yeah, I totally agree. Brett Maher was the kicker who missed those 5 extra points.
No, it wasn't Brett Maher. Definitely wasn't Brett Maher. Somebody else.
So someone else missed a bunch of extra points. I don't mean the Packer kicker from last year is Anders Carlson, but I don't know if that's who you're thinking of. But they did cut him because he missed the kick in the playoffs against the 49ers. So
you're right. Yeah, it was Anders Carlson.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's get to these games here. We have a big Thursday night game. Usually these Thursday night games suck, and probably this one will as well because there are probably going to be a lot of mistakes here because these teams are playing on 3 days of rest. But at least it's a good matchup. The Redskins at the Eagles. So the Eagles are favored by 3.5. I like the Eagles here, and I know you've been on the Redskins all year, and you've been right to do so. But I think this is a tough matchup for them. The Eagles get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. The Redskins, I think, are going to struggle a little bit to protect Jaden Daniels, who couldn't run very much last week. Only had 5 rushing yards, and I think that was more Pittsburgh more than anything. It's not like his ribs or anything, but I think the Eagles are the better team. I like their defense a lot. Their defense is actually number 1 in adjusted EPA right now. I don't like this line though. It's 3.5, and if you're laying 3.5, you need a really good reason to do so. Because minus 3.5, I believe, is about like 47.7%. Cover rate. And so yeah, like I said, I don't know if there's a great reason to take the Eagles, but I still would lean toward them. They're the better team on a short week, and also Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback doing this for the first time, playing a game on 3 days of rest. And I think there might be something to that. The only other quarterback who's done that this year is Bo Nix. Now, his team won, but he did not play well in that game. It was just the Broncos taking advantage of the Saints. So, just having half the roster out with injuries. So I like the Eagles here, but I'm not planning on betting this game. Who do you like here?
I hate to come out of the gate and say I have no idea, but this is one of those games where you sit back and enjoy the game. Last week's Thursday night game was probably one of the best games of the year thus far. And, you come out Thursday night, all these short week games, you just usually get a bad product. And I usually lean towards the better team or the home team or both. I don't really know which way to go here. I mean, with the extra hook, I probably lean Washington. I do expect Philly to win, though. I don't think Washington is ready to step up in class in a divisional playoff showdown. I've been on them all year. I continue to like them. I have high hopes for them. But this is a tough stretch, right? Philly's off of a blowout win. Washington's off of a tough loss. The matchup certainly favors Philly, especially running the ball. This is a game where Washington needs Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, I don't know if he's healthy. I don't know if he's going to play. But this is a game where they really need that type of lockdown presence. I think Jordan Mailata might be back this week. That's big for the Eagles' run game. We saw last week, granted, credit Pittsburgh's defense on the line of scrimmage. They really got into the backfield. They pressured Daniels a lot. And I think he only had 5 yards rushing. So that's really big if the Eagles can step up and get pressure. I don't expect Washington to be able to win this game on the road on a short week. The hook kind of gives me pause on laying 3.5. And I kind of, from a pool perspective, I'd probably take the hook. But I do expect Philly to win. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a field goal game, but I'm definitely not one of the games that I'm looking to bet. Really sit back, enjoy. This is a playoff matchup. No question about it.
Yeah, for sure. Kim Eagle asking, how about Redskins +9 with Chiefs +8.5?
I wouldn't tease Washington in this spot. I don't know. there's not really any value going 3-9. So I don't really like that. I think this is one of the games. First of all, you can live bet this game because I do think that if Washington takes an early lead, there might be some value on Philly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if Philly takes an early lead, their ability to run the ball, Washington will fight. They fought, especially when they played Baltimore. I look at this point of the season, we can look a lot at resumes, right? Who have these teams played? They've played similar teams. Both teams beat Cincinnati. Washington's got a quality win. They played Arizona. That was somewhat of a quality win. Otherwise, most of the wins for both teams have not really been against good opponents. This is really like the first game where if Washington went in and won this game, that's really telling. But that's going to be a tough task. And if Philly wins, give them a good win, they kind of take control of the division. I think it's more of a must-win game for Philly, being that they're the home team. And Washington always plays Philly close. Like, even when they're a bad team, they play Philly close. So I'm very excited for this game. I think this is a great game. I think it's going to be a 3-point game. I may look to live bet the team that's behind at halftime, but that's really the only value I can find. If I'm getting somebody +7, that may be where to look. Otherwise, I think this is a field goal game.
Okay, makes sense. All right, let's get to the next one. So we have the Packers at the Bears. This line is Packers -6, which is I think a crazy overreaction based on the advanced spread in this game. The Packers are -2.5 on the advanced spread. So this was moved 3.5 points to the key number of 3 to another key number of 6. But then again, the Bears lost to the Patriots 19-3. Caleb Williams took 9 sacks. I think, with my picks last week, there was some bad luck. We mentioned Jake Moody. Now, again, to be fair, the Niners special teams have been bad, but still, you'd think he'd make at least one field goal before that last one. But anyway, so the other bad luck game, we'll get to it later. The Vikings with Sam Darnold just throwing interceptions into the end zone, which I guess he did as well last week. But the Bears game, I felt like I handicapped poorly just because I didn't evaluate the injuries on the Bears offensive line well enough. And I was looking at it Sunday morning. I opened up Our Lads and just looked at the depth chart, and I saw just a stream of red on their offensive line. I'm like, how did I not see this? Because I usually look at the injuries pretty closely. I just didn't see the Chicago offensive line injuries, and I had Chicago -6 in the contest, unfortunately. So that was obviously a loss, and I downgraded the unit count, but still not nearly enough. So. I think a key for this game is the Chicago offensive line, like Ardano Wright and Braxton Jones. Are they going to play? If one of them's back, I will have some interest. But then again, Tevin Jenkins is also injured too, so you have to watch out for his status. So, I mean, there's a chance Chicago is going to be without 3 offensive linemen in this game. And the Packers produce the most pressure in the NFL for a team that doesn't blitz 20% of the time. So that's definitely an issue. But if these guys come back, then I think Chicago is going to look a little bit better, especially given that they just fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. He was awful. And so anytime a team fires a coach, generally the players will play a lot harder. And, given that Chicago is coming off a blowout loss, an embarrassing one to the Patriots, I think they're going to rebound here if they get their offensive lineman back. So this is a tough one to handicap right now because we don't know the injuries. But if depending on how the injuries go, I may be on Chicago or I may be on Green Bay. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, the injury report is key. I think at one point last week they were missing all 5 of their starting offensive linemen between the injuries and guys who got injured mid-game. They were down bad. But the 9 sacks, it's not all the O-line. And I was listening to, I forget who said it, someone who was an ex-offensive lineman. It's like a lot of times when you see 9 sacks, and we saw this with Fields last year with Chicago, quarterbacks that hold on to the ball way too long. And that's clearly something that Caleb Williams has a problem with, is just holding on to the ball. His first read's not there, second read's not there, and then he looks down, he looks around, the ball is still being held, and he's trying to think, he did this in USC also. He held the ball, he runs around trying to make a play. NFL linebackers and linemen are a lot faster. So you can't get away with holding the ball 3+ seconds. So he's taking sacks. It really doesn't matter who the offensive line is. If you're going to hold the ball that long, he's going to take pressure. One of the things that I look at in this game is that Hail Mary game really kind of destroyed this team. Since they won in London and came back from London. After that, and that game, they didn't play well anyway against Washington. They were down, I think, 12-0 in the game before they made something happen, before they took that late lead. And then they just have, complete no-show after no-show. It's not just the holding the ball. I think the team kind of looks lifeless, and they really had to make a change at offensive coordinator. I think also we've seen that Chicago is, they're pretty overrated. Look at their wins. They beat Tennessee, which really they should have lost. Levis kind of gave that game away. They beat the Rams, who were missing half the team at the time. They beat Carolina, and they beat Jacksonville. So I think last week I mentioned that I'm looking to fade Chicago down the stretch. Their over-under last week wins was 7.5. And I said, let's wait for them to beat New England, which I expected they would beat. And then let's take the under because their games coming up are brutal. They still have all 6 divisional games coming up, and they play the Niners and they play the Seahawks. So, and their over-under, by the way, now is 2.5 more wins. So 6.5 for the season. I actually can't find it. It wasn't available on FanDuel yesterday or today. But I really like Chicago under 6.5 wins. That said, you said it. The overreaction to the line just doesn't make sense. Unless you really factor in a couple of points to take this line from 3 to 6.5, I have to be on the dog in this game. I just can't lay 6.5 points with Green Bay. They haven't earned that respect. Love, you assume that he's more healthier now than what he was with the bye week there to rest up. Love is 2-5 against the spread this season. He's tied with Geno and Darnold with 10 picks. Even though he's missed time, he still leads the league in interceptions. Some of that could be attributed to the injury, I guess, but he has not played well. So he's turning the ball over. I don't think that they deserve to be a touchdown favorite on the road in the division. So 6.5, if we get the lineman back, Chicago was embarrassed. I don't necessarily expect Chicago to win, but I do expect them to play better. New coordinator, maybe some things changed. Certainly the veterans wanted this change to be made. And I don't know that a 3.5 point line move is warranted off of all that. So I lean to the Bears, assuming the line is healthy or somewhat healthier. I don't love it. I don't think I'd play it regardless, but I definitely would lean Chicago getting 6.5 points.
Yeah, I'm seeing Bears under 6.5 minus 160. But yeah, you're right. I don't see this on FanDuel. So
I wouldn't lay 160. 160 is too expensive.
Yeah.
If you're laying 160, you really need to win those bets at a very high clip.
Yeah.
So while I like Chicago under, I just want to see their schedule because week 18 it always matters to see who somebody's playing. Chicago week 18 plays at Green Bay. So you would assume that game would mean something to Green Bay. Unlike Denver, perhaps, that's playing Kansas City in week 18, where the game probably won't mean anything to Kansas City. So I still like that under 2.5, but 160 is a tough price. I like to look at like 130 or better or plus money, but 160 comes a little expensive for me.
Minus 150 on Caesars, but it's close enough to still not be great,
150 is still kind of let me wait a week because can they win this week? Maybe.
Yeah.
If they can luck out a win this week, now you're coming off of a win. Again, they're home. In Green Bay, do we know that they're healthy? I don't know for sure that they're healthy. But after this week, then the schedule gets rough. Minnesota is a better team than Green Bay, in my opinion. At Detroit, at San Francisco. I mean, 3 straight road games. At Detroit, at San Francisco, at Minnesota, and then Detroit again. That's 4 straight games. They're probably not winning any of those games. So that might be the time. Maybe wait a week. And then if they win, now you get a better price. And if they lose this week, okay, so you didn't get it. I mean, the beauty of betting on these sports, games, futures, you don't have to bet. So if you wait and you miss the window, then just, pass. Keep moving on. Don't chase a bad number.
Instead of waiting a week, you can maybe wait till Friday to see what the injury report looks like. And if all the offensive linemen are out, maybe you just take the under then.
I mean, you could do it on Sunday morning. You could bet that on Saturday night, right?
Yep.
Depending on where the number is. But yeah, if I had 6.5 at minus 30, I'm in. More than 30, I'll wait. Maybe they win this week and then I get a better number.
Kim McNeagle, $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Kim McNeagle. Really appreciate it. He's asking, coming off my best week of the year, how about money line Packers, Philly, and the Niners plus 189? So this is another one where you'd probably wait on the injury report for the Bears. So if all the offensive linemen are out, like the Packers are going to look a lot better than they already do. And then you have Eagles and the Niners, and I like that they're all at different times. So if you win the first 2 legs, you can hedge with the second one, or with the Niners or Seahawks, whatever. Although with this, like, this is the NFL, right? Like,
so I'm not going to do the math right now, but let me explain something. This is one of those like mechanical parlays. You talk about games being at different times.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee it. I'm not going to waste everybody's time now doing the math. I can almost guarantee that if you lay each of these money lines mechanically, meaning let's say you Philly minus 175, you lay 175, you win your 100. Now you have 275. You take the 275, you play it on the next game, right? Philly, you win that, you roll it over. If you roll over those 3 games, I guarantee you your odds are better than plus 189. I guarantee it, because you see this all the time in Vegas with like playoff runs. You could do it with the NFL. You could do it with college basketball. You can't do it with a series. That doesn't make sense. But you could do it with football playoffs, and you could do it with college basketball tournament time. If you mechanically parlay these teams, instead of taking a plus 189, you're probably getting double the odds. And nobody wants to lay minus 175, but the logic is the same. So bet 100, right? If you're betting 100 and you roll over your winnings 3 times or 2 times, otherwise your odds would be, your odds would be better than plus 189. So that's how the books scam you on some of these parlays. You're not getting the best odds. So if you're going to do a money line parlay, play it one at a time, and then you don't have to hedge. You can just play less if you instead of hedging, or unless you want to hedge and play for a middle. But if you don't like the other side, then why throw away the money, right? If you like the money line on the Niners, there's no reason to play Niners and Seahawks, right? You're just costing you. Take each play individually. Don't make that try to get the middle ground. Just mechanically parlay each, and I guarantee it. And you can do your own math based on whatever book you're looking at. But if you play minus 175, roll over the winnings twice, I can 99% guarantee you're getting better than 2 to 1.
Yeah, that's better than my answer. So
I'll waste everybody's time with mathematics here.
So there you go. So yeah, maybe do those one at a time. It doesn't look as sexy. You don't get the plus 189, and your first one is minus 170 or whatever it was. But yeah, that's probably going to be better. So yeah, do the math, see if it makes sense. So although I will say straight up about all 3 of these teams, like as I was saying, that like, this is the NFL. Upsets happen all the time. And upsets you don't expect. Like in week 2, did you think that the Ravens are going to lose to the Raiders? Even last week, did you think the Bears are going to lose to the Patriots? Like, I feel like one of these teams will probably lose. I don't know which one, but it could absolutely happen. And so I just looking at that plus 189, it didn't seem like that was too high enough number to warrant taking this. So yeah, let's move on to it's time to ramp up these super chats for Walt. Think more like Elon Musk or George Soros. Yeah, yeah, what Mike said. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. All right, let's get to the next one. The Browns at the Saints. Saints are favored at 1 here. I love the Browns in the spot for multiple reasons. One, you got to think about what the Browns mindset is. They got blown out the week before the bye. They've had 2 weeks to stew about that game. Just embarrassed against the Chargers, and the Chargers have shown that they're on the upper level. Like, they've blown out all these bad teams, the Browns included. And the Browns are coming off that quote unquote Super Bowl win against the Ravens. So they were predictably flat. Like, I didn't think they were going to play that well in that game. And then you have the Saints, who are coming off. I don't know if it was their Super Bowl, but it was certainly a big game for them, given that they're eliminated from the playoffs. Like, they upset Atlanta. Atlanta is the biggest rival, so they had to love beating the Falcons. Now they're coming off a win, an upset win, and they're a bad team, so they're going to have trouble sustaining success. And you got to wonder, what are the Saints doing offensively outside of Alvin Kamara? And the Browns are good against runs, so they're throwing deep to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and that worked against Atlanta's bad defense, but that's not going to work against the Browns. Myles Garrett's going to be all over Derek Carr here. New Orleans' offensive line is in shambles. Garrett's going to get a lot of pressure on him, and those deep shots to Valdes-Scantling are not going to work. So I love the Browns. I think they're going to win. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a blowout. So who do you like here?
I don't like the game. Third straight game in a row that I really don't have much of an opinion on. It'll get better from here, I promise. But I don't. I mean, Jameis Winston going back to New Orleans, I fear that he's going to try to do too much. And if Jameis tries to do too much, the picks are coming. He threw multiple picks that were dropped against Baltimore that killed the end of that game. Hamilton dropped the pick. And last week, the picks were not dropped. So he threw 3 of them. He's going to throw balls that are going to land around the defense. Now, I agree the Saints' defense is terrible. You got a battle of the number 32s here. You got the worst defense against arguably the worst offense. So I don't really want any part of that. I mean, Atlanta just put up 468 yards against New Orleans, so obviously I could see Cleveland moving the ball. I mentioned this last week when we talked about the Chargers game. when the Browns played the Chargers, they had 6 straight drives into plus territory. The first 5 produced 0 points. I mean, I understand the Chargers have a much better defense, but it's in plus territory. You have to expect to, out of 5 drives, to score 0 points in 5 drives in plus territory is embarrassing. And that's just Jameis making mistakes. I mean, I would obviously look at Olave. Is Olave out for sure? I mean,
Yeah, he's on IR. Yeah,
he's on IR. Okay, so Olave's out for sure. I know that you're on the pro side. The professionals have taken this from 2.5 down to 1, so you're definitely on the right side. I shouldn't say the right side, but the professional side where that money is going. I just don't trust Cleveland on the road in what might be a hostile environment. I still like New Orleans as a home team. Their defense is awful. I don't like teams like that coming off of a loss. I kind of have these two teams pretty much equal. Maybe Cleveland slightly ahead, but I do give New Orleans like 1.5 for home, and therefore I think the game should be a pick'em. So when I have a game like this as a pick'em spot with both teams kind of out of the playoffs, I don't really know that I can trust either side, and I have no idea which side I like. I wasn't even thinking about teasing the Browns at 7.5. I just don't trust their offense. I don't trust Winston not to make mistakes. So I don't like the game. If you like Cleveland, you have a conviction that Winston is going to take good revenge on his former team. Great, but I'm worried that those picks get caught by the defense somehow. Even though the Saints' defense has been terrible, giving up almost 500 yards a game, I just don't trust Cleveland to put the ball in the end zone.
Okay, I do think that Nick Chubb might have his best game of the year so far. Now it's a low bar because he hasn't played well, but this is easily the worst run defense he'll have faced. Like past 2 games, he's battled the Chargers and the Ravens, like 2 great run defenses. So Saints have been awful against the run, ever since they've suffered injuries. Jesse asking start 2-3 PPR Adams, Tillman, Ridley. I think I'll definitely go Tillman against the Saints secondary, missing 3 cornerbacks. So the question is Adams versus Ridley. If you think the Jets are going to bounce back, I think Adams for sure, because Ridley has a tougher matchup against Minnesota. I think, well, we'll get to Minnesota. We'll get to that game in a bit. So I would go with Adams. Do you have any?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I would go Adams Tillman.
Okay, interesting. Should have invested in Doge.
Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. Doge price 38 cents right now. So yeah, you could have gotten a good deal on that. GameStop, by the way, up to $26 or so right now. So it's everything's looking good so far.
Bitcoin almost hit 90. We were just shy of 90,000.
I saw my 0.2 Bitcoin's looking okay. I wish I had more. I think I did have more. I had to sell some. Anyway, next game we have Rams at the Patriots. This line is 4.5 or 5, depending where you look. Of course, the Rams are coming off that Monday night loss to the Dolphins that we discussed. So I like the Rams here quite a bit, actually. I think they bounce back. This is a bad team coming off a win. The Patriots they took it to the Bears. They won 19-3. But I think that was more of the Bears having a ton of injuries and, being coached very poorly and being quarterbacked very poorly. I think the Patriots might have some just false confidence here. And I think the Rams coming off a loss could take it to them. There might be some concern about the Rams playing on a short week on the East Coast at 1 o'clock, but they've actually done that off of Monday night, then playing at 1 o'clock on the East Coast. They've actually done that 4 times on their Sean McVay, and they're 3-1 against the spread in those games. Not that that's like a big sample size, but just shows you that you don't need to be worried about that. My thing here is that like the Rams, they made a lot of sloppy mistakes. If they didn't make those mistakes, they probably would have beaten the Dolphins. And I think like something that had to do with those mistakes were the 2 offensive linemen coming back from injuries. Like they shuffled around their linemen, and I think that caused some confusion. So I feel like a week in practice with those guys should just cure whatever issues they have. So I like the Rams to bounce back here. I think they're just a lot better than the Patriots. So who do you like here?
Yeah, here I agree, and I have a real opinion. I love the Rams in this spot. This is likely on my card. It's a great spot play on both sides. Obviously, coming off of a loss, they played so poorly last night. I saw that the linemen were coming back, and I was all excited. Mm-hmm. Those linemen were awful. They were really, really bad. Avila was terrible in that game. But I blame McVay a lot because a few times in that game, he had Stafford out on the run, out on the boot, and those plays were very successful. And they created a lot of positive plays, rolling to his right or left, throwing down towards the sideline. Nakua was open a bunch of times. He had a cup down the sidelines a few times. And on the flip side, when he kept him in the pocket, Stafford was taking sacks, and he was taking a lot of pressure. I hated what he was doing when he didn't have Stafford on the move. He was not producing positive plays. So I think they had a poor game plan into that game. McVay's a great coach. I think he'll change that. He'll make the corrections that are needed, have a better game plan going in. And on the flip side, you have New England coming off of a win where they're happy. Their fans are happy when the offense looks good. They don't care about the defense. But the team coming off of a win like that, they didn't do anything in that game. Offensively, they kicked a bunch of field goals. So I expect the Rams to bounce back in this game. My power ratings makes this game 7. I think the Rams, I still have the Rams as a, I don't have them as a top 10 team anymore. Oh, no, I do. I have the Rams, Vikings, and Packers all tied, 10, 11, 12, in whatever order you want to put them. That's my personal opinion on the Rams. I think, I know they killed the Vikings last week. I think the Rams, Vikings, and Packers are all quality, potential playoff contenders, and I have the Patriots down at number 30. So I have this game to be a touchdown, maybe 6.5. I was quite surprised when I saw this line coming out at 5.5, and now it's 4.5. So I think it's an overreaction to how bad the Rams looked. I expect the bounce back. They were embarrassing. They were 1 for 10 on third down before the last drive, which doesn't count against prevent defense. They were 1 for 10 on third down, and they took a bunch of sacks on third down that knocked them out of field goal range, that gave up the ball. He had a ball that went over his head that he took a sack on. Just really poor third down play calling and, of course, execution. I expect that all to change, and I think this game is going to be similar to the Houston-New England game where Houston just blew them out of the water. So yeah. I don't think the Rams blow them out by multiple scores, but I could see this game being like a 24-16 type of game, 24-13, something like that. I expect the Rams to put up 20 to 24 points, and I don't think the Patriots are going to score.
Yeah, that I like the comparison. The Texans Patriots game. I think that'll be similar to this one. Why does McDaniel wear women's glasses? There's a lot of questions about McDaniel. I just don't know. Juan asking, got offered Debo and Waddle for Kenneth Walker. Should a counter offer with Stevenson for Debo straight up? Look, if you can get Debo for Stevenson, I would do that 100%. I would not trade Debo. Well, Debo and Waddle for Walker. No, I don't think I'd do that. I think Debo and Walker are pretty close. Like they're going in the best ball drafts in Dortmund now. Like Kenneth Walker is going late second, Debo's going early third, so they're pretty close. And then you're throwing Waddle in. Like Waddle's like a 5th or 6th round pick. So I don't think I'd do that. But if you can get Debo for Stevenson, I would do that.
This probably really comes down to who your lineup is, who your other running back or receivers, right? I don't know if you're comparing apples to apples. If you need one of the positions and you have a extra surplus of running backs, then change. You could certainly trade Walker, but to me, it all comes down to who your team is around that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ravens to Steelers. This line is Ravens -3. I feel like the public is going to be all over the Ravens. That's the case right now, but the public usually doesn't like hammer these games until the weekend. I'd be surprised if like it's not like 90-10, like really, because everyone loves the Ravens. I don't feel like anyone outside of Western Pennsylvania believes in the Steelers yet, but the Steelers have owned this rivalry. They've won 7 out of 8 ever since Lamar Jackson won his first MVP. I know Lamar Jackson didn't play in a couple of those games, but still, in the games in which Lamar Jackson played against the Steelers, they produced 10, 16, 19, 24, and 14 points. The Steelers have built their defense to contain Lamar Jackson. And we actually saw a preview of that last week where they held Jaden Daniels to 5 rushing yards. And like they're just so athletic on the edge that they just prevented Jaden Daniels from scrambling out. And if you just look at Lamar Jackson's stats against the Steelers, like he doesn't run for that many yards. And the Steelers just know how to defend them. And Mike Tomlin, great as an underdog. And it's almost pains me to say this, but Russell Wilson has played well. Like I refuse to believe it's going to continue. I think he's going to regress. And he's gotten lucky on some of his deep shots for sure. But the Ravens can't defend the pass. They're 30th in defensive EPA. They can't really get after the quarterback that well. They're below average in pressure rate, and their cornerbacks are awful. And they might be missing Kyle Hamilton, who got hurt on Thursday night. I think the Steelers win this game. Mike Tomlin, as an underdog in the division, is 22-10 against the spread. Just hard to go against that. I wish they were still getting +3.5, which was the advanced line, but 3 is still good for me. Going to be on the Steelers. Who do you like here?
Well, at 3, I would lay off the game because this is going to be a 3-point game.
Yep.
5 of the last 10 games that these two teams have played, it really doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It could be Snoop Huntley. It could be Big Ben, a hobbling Big Ben, not Big Ben of old, Big Ben of when he was old. Mason Rudolph. It's like whoever plays quarterback, it doesn't really make a difference. It's still going to be a 3-point game. 5 of the last 10 have been decided by 3 points. 9 of the last 10 have been 1-score games. So whether it's a 6-point game, 5-4, there's been like a 4 in there, there's been 5 in there, 2 7s in there. Only 1 out of the last 10 games have been decided by more than 1 score. So I have to assume that it's going to be a 1-score game again. Certainly Pittsburgh, like you said, is built for this. Pittsburgh last week really, really held Jaden Daniels inside the pocket. I'm not going to try to compare, as Mike Tomlin said, Jaden Daniels to Mr. Jackson. I don't know if you heard that. He told some reporters, like, we're not going to start comparing Jaden Daniels to Mr. Jackson. That's a multiple-time MVP, and he's right. Lamar Jackson has earned the respect, but I don't think that Jackson's going to go crazy in this game, and their defense has been abysmal. Without Hamilton, that's a big problem. You're going to get those moon balls that may or may not get caught. You get the PI. 9 of the last – what is the over-under here? I think 9 of the – Baltimore is 9-1 to the over. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Every week they're going over because they're a machine offensively, and they don't play any defense. So I expect if they're ahead, they'll blow the lead. If they're behind, I have confidence that they'll be able to score and come back. So at 3.5, I agree with you. At 3, I don't necessarily agree with you. I would still lean towards Baltimore winning the game. I do have a trust issue here. We talked earlier about special teams. Tucker. Pittsburgh's got the better kicker right now. There's no question about it. Boswell in Pittsburgh is excellent. And Tucker, you give him 50+. I don't have confidence that he's making those 50+ yard field goals. So if the game did come down to a field goal on that grass in that stadium, I have a lot more confidence on the Steelers side than I do on the Baltimore side. So that would give me some pause on Baltimore. I wouldn't lay 3, but I probably wouldn't take Pittsburgh +3 either. I'd need a hook. Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the game. This is a big game for that division. I cannot believe Pittsburgh is still in this position right now and theoretically can win this game and take early control. I've been dead wrong on Pittsburgh. They've been getting lucky, but they've been playing well. Their defense has been excellent. And you got to credit Wilson by making these plays. I mean, he's still that pass to Williams. How come Aaron Rodgers couldn't make that pass to Mike Williams a couple of times?
Yeah.
He's blaming Williams is not in the right spot. Okay, maybe not. Put the ball up for grabs and put the ball in a spot where your receiver can go make a play. Wilson did. He threw the ball off his back foot 39 into the perfect spot. Williams went and got it. Aaron Rodgers put the ball in the wrong spot and then blamed Williams for not being in the right place. That's the difference between these two teams right now. One team that's fading like falling like a rock, and Pittsburgh that's just winning game in, game out. So I don't lean towards Pittsburgh here. I still lean at 3 towards Baltimore to win the game, but I do believe this will be a 3-point game.
Yeah,
this is a teaser game for Pittsburgh. Although I don't want to tease 3-9, but if you're teasing Pittsburgh maybe 3-10, I'd be very surprised if they got blown out at home.
Yeah, if for some reason this falls to 2.5, then I think teaser to 8.5 makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree. 3-9 doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree.
What's the over/under in this game? Because someone said they like the under 48.
I think it's 47. 47. I like the over 47. I think
it's right around there. Mid 20s. I think both teams will get to 23. So I would probably lean more towards the over at 48.5. I think it'll be right around there. 26-23, 27-23, 27-24. But I think this is a 3-point game. And if you're betting on this matchup to be more than a 3-point game, half the time you're going to be wrong. So,
yeah. So slow bring up the Steelers Cowboys game. I said this on Saturday. I don't, for the life of me, understand that result. Like to this day, I can at least explain the other results. Week 1, the Bengals losing to the Patriots. Yeah, they're looking ahead to the Chiefs. They always suck week 1. Sure. Week 2, the Raiders beat the Ravens, but the Ravens are coming off that crazy game with the Chiefs. They were deflated. They were looking ahead to Dallas next week. Sure. But what was that Pittsburgh-Dallas game? Because the Steelers did not have a look-ahead game. They were coming off a loss. I just don't get, and we've seen how bad Dallas is since. I don't, for the life of me, understand what happened there.
Well, can you explain what happened in the Baltimore-Vegas Raiders game, which knocked me out of circle?
Yeah. I just the Raiders or the Ravens were coming off that was like their Super Bowl or early season Super Bowl, like
The
against
Ravens?
the Ravens against the Chiefs. Yeah, like
No, not the Ravens. Oh, you're saying they came off the loss. Okay.
yeah, they're coming off a loss. It's something I call like the ladder theory, where an underdog plays super hard and then they're big favorites the next week. I always love to fade that
Yeah,
situation.
but once they're up by 10 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but keep in mind that was when the Raiders still had Devontae Adams. Like, that was a different team. They had Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Brock Bowers, and like they only were on the field together for 2 games. So with Adams, I thought they were a different team. But ever since they traded Adams, they lost their firepower. They didn't have Myers for a lot of games either. So at least like I could understand the Raiders. Like, yeah, the win I thought was surprising, but I still I could at least explain it, But I couldn't explain that the Pittsburgh lost to Dallas at all. Like, I don't know where that came from. Like, I just don't get it. And when it happened, I'm like, okay, I guess Pittsburgh's not good, but they've been great ever since. So I don't know. I really don't know. I guess like Russell Wilson has just been better than Justin Fields. Maybe that's it. I mean, Fields did quarterback the Steelers in that game. So will Derrick Henry be the difference? Steelers are really good against the run, so I'm not expecting Henry.
Pay attention to Highsmith. Highsmith may be out. That's a big loss.
I think his dad tweeted that he's gonna be out for 2 to 3 weeks.
Highsmith's a very good player. He's integral part of that defense. But so is Kyle Hamilton. He's the only player on a really bad defense.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say he's the only player. I mean, obviously they still have Roquan, but
that's secondary, yeah.
The secondary is at a big loss without Kyle Hamilton, especially in this game where you're going to get those jump balls.
Yeah.
Although Kyle Hamilton can't seem to catch. So
that's true.
Yeah, I'm still bitter about that.
John bringing up his brother-in-law is a diehard Jets fan, never seen him this dejected in 20 years.
I agree. I have some very good friends who are diehard Jet fans that were texting me on Sunday. The Jets just quit. I'm laying minus 23.5 live. I think the score was like 14-3 at the time.
Yeah.
And these are fans that are literally ripping their hair out, just not sure what the heck's going on. Really, really, really dejected Jets fans.
Yeah.
I feel bad, but I don't feel as bad because I have the Jets over 7.5 wins, which I gave to a lot of people, and that just went to hell. So I'm now with you, Jet fans. We stink.
All right. JTS just says yes.
Just in the season.
Yeah, right. All right. Let's get to the next game. Raiders at the Dolphins. This is the other half of that Monday night game. Dolphins are minus 7.5. They were 7 on the advanced line, so I don't like this line movement. I'm not crazy about backing the Dolphins here because they only generated about like 235 yards of offense against the Rams. Like, yeah, they won. They scored, 23 points, but it was really the Rams just screwing up like over and over again, and the Dolphins took advantage of that. And they made some mistakes too in the first half. They cleaned things up in the second half. Although Tua was almost intercepted twice. Like, there's 2 drop picks, so this could have gone very poorly for the Dolphins. I think the question you have to ask yourself here, if you're going to bet the Dolphins, is, or I guess if you're gonna, whichever side you bet, is how good is Miami's defense right now in EPA? They're 22nd, but they're missing Zach Seiler for a few games, and he came back last week.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, he was outstanding. So he definitely helps the defense. I don't know if he elevates it to 22nd, especially if Miami is going to be missing a couple cornerbacks who got hurt. Kendall Fuller got a concussion. Kader Kohu got hurt in the second half. I don't know what his status is yet, but if those guys are out, suddenly Miami's going to look a lot worse as minus 7.5. But if those cornerbacks can play, and if Miami's defense, if you think they're legit, then I think they're going to give the Raiders a lot of problems because the Raiders have terrible quarterbacking. But if Miami's down, there's 2 cornerbacks, and you don't think Miami's defense is that good, then I think the Raiders might be able to get one of those backdoor covers, which they've gotten a few times this year. So I'm not excited about this game. I think I'd lean Miami, but I'm not. I don't think I'm going to be betting this one unless there's injury news that changes this stuff. So who you like to hear?
I'm in the same exact boat. I like Miami. I lean Miami. I don't love laying 7.5. To me, this we'll talk about this theme as we go along. I don't like Tua, but Desmond Ridder is not an NFL quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have an NFL quarterback, I can't pick you against a team that theoretically, much to my being wrong about Tua throughout his career, he at least gets the ball out quick. And when he does, he can make plays. He can get the ball to Tyreek Hill. He gets the ball to Waddle. They can get going in that short screen game with HN and Mostert, and they can make plays. Did the Raiders quit? They just fired the offensive coordinator and they brought in Norv Turner as an offensive assistant or some sort of, I don't know what his position is, but when you're firing coaches and bringing in Norv Turner and Desmond Ridder is your quarterback, that's not a recipe for success. I could see the Dolphins taking a lead in this game, keeping their foot on the gas, trying to get a rhythm, and putting up 27, 30 points. I really don't like Miami. I think they're a below average team, but they certainly have shown in some games they're capable. And this could be one of them where if they are creating turnovers and they're getting good field position, and they're certainly not going to give up long drives to Desmond Ridder, they can keep their foot on the gas and they'll have a 2-score lead. I don't trust Desmond Ridder in the backdoor situation. So with that said, I would have to lean and stay Miami. 7.5, not going to put this in the contest, but I definitely lean Miami. And did the Raiders quit? I mean, they're out of the playoffs. Miami still needs the game. They kind of coming off a win. They feel like they can stack some wins together and stay in playoff contention. So I fully expect Miami to win this game. I don't think Raiders are a live dog in this spot. So I would lean towards Miami. But if you're laying 7.5 with Tua, the way he's looked, I mean, he's looked really not good. And people, look at the box score 2 weeks ago. He's 25 to 28. Like, did you watch that game? One pass went more than 7 yards downfield. Everything is snap, throw, snap, throw. And even this week, he was throwing the ball behind receivers a couple of times. He threw multiple balls that should have been picked off that were dropped. He was not impressive. Outside of the first drive, maybe, he was really not impressive. So I don't like Tua, but I think this is the type of game where they can make a statement. And Desmond Ridder, I just can't believe if Desmond Ridder and Norv Turner, you got to pick against that. So
you need one of those Norv Turner spite games. I remember this. I think it was back in 2001. I want to say Norv Turner had just been fired by the Redskins, and he was hired by the Chargers as their offensive coordinator. And he actually happened to play Washington in Week 1, and the Chargers were 1-15 the prior year. They beat the Redskins 30-3 in Week 1, and he told the media afterward that he spent 6 months designing plays for that game. So you have to get that sort of situation. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a revenge game here, but if there's ever a revenge game, Norv Turner is going to bring it. So
okay,
so it's something to watch. Something to watch out for.
With Desmond Ridder at quarterback.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder.
There's opportunities when you look back at the season, and we'll get to this game much later. There are situations where you're going to look back and say, man, I wish I had that opportunity to bet against this coach or this quarterback, or both, right? The coach quarterback tandem. And, it's like, wow, I had that opportunity. The line is only a touchdown. Also look to live bet these games, right? I mean, we saw the Raiders give a great effort against Kansas City. They come back last week, they got blown out 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. They get blown out by Cincinnati. So now, does Miami, they covered this last year, by the way. This was a 7-point game last year when Miami was probably better. And the Raiders, I think, lost by a touchdown. But I think this is a much worse Raider team. And they don't have a quarterback. So I don't know what we're betting here. But 7.5 scares me away, and not a contest pick. Pick the game, move on. I'm not betting it.
Yeah, the Raiders last year, they were 7th in defense. This Raider defense is 28th in defense. It's a big difference. They have a lot of injuries defensively. And yeah, last year the Raiders had Devontae Adams too. So big difference here on both ends of the ball. And yeah, I mean, Aiden O'Connell is better than Ridder. Like, I mean, Aiden O'Connell is not a good quarterback by any means, but he's the guy the Raiders wanted to start after Minshew's early failures. And then he got hurt, and then they had to go to Minshew, and Minshew was terrible, so they went to Ridder. It's like Ridder is their third option. I think you could definitely, to your point, like fade these awful quarterbacks on awful teams. I think there's a great track record of it. I used to have a rule. It's called like it's like the opposite of golden rule. It's like the pirate rule to like to fade these situations. And so I think you could do it. But the problem is, like, how do you lay 7.5 with the Dolphins? They've shown nothing this year. Like with just looking at the games with Tua, week one, they almost lost to the Jaguars team that we've seen is awful, and they had that home field advantage, that rare home field advantage they have in Miami. Week 2 they're getting blown out by Buffalo. They lose to Arizona. They lose to Buffalo, although the second Buffalo game was a little more impressive.
Last night was the first time they beat a team with a winning record
Or yeah, five,
Rams
yeah,
have a
yeah,
winning record. Hold on.
500 record.
So that
So
doesn't count.
yeah, it
I
doesn't
view
count.
the Rams as a team
They got
that's.
outgained by 100 yards in that game too.
I view the Rams as a team that was above 500, like above
Yeah,
average.
me too.
And I
Yeah,
was, talking to another friend of mine last night. He's like, "No, I'm on Dolphins." I'm like, "Well, why would you? Why do you like the Dolphins in this game? They haven't beaten a team with a winning record in a year and a half, other than Dallas, who I would consider just a bunch of losers.
yeah.
So if Dallas is if you're 1-10 against teams that are above 500 and your one is Dallas, okay, you're 0-10 against teams with a winning record. But I guess you know what, the Rams don't have a winning record, so my stat continues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love laying the 7.5 here. I don't think I just like the spot. And I like the fact that the Raiders look like a team that's quit playing out the string, bringing the guy off the couch. The guy's not going to be there next year, and just move on. But I wouldn't be surprised if Miami finally put together a full game, a complete game, and won this game by margin. And then next week or the week after, when we see Miami on the schedule, it's like, oh, who'd they beat? Well, yeah, they killed the Raiders, but that doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those, like, you better win by 2 touchdowns. Otherwise, you're still a below average team and you're not going to give you that credit. Who's Miami play next week? Just
Patriots.
They play Patriots. Okay. So they have 2 weeks right now where if this team is going to compete, get back to, close to 500, they better win these next 2 games by 10 plus points. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're going to Green Bay on that Black Friday and they have no business being in that game. We'll be on Green Bay in that game as a home favorite. Like Green Bay last year came out on fire on Thanksgiving weekend. Miami, if they want to show that they're potentially going to compete for a playoff spot, they better win the next 2 games by 10 to 14 plus points.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think they can. They're hard to trust, but you're right. Like, how do the Raiders play hard for Ritter? Like, they have to know it's over. They had some expectations heading into the year because they had at least had a good defense last year. They beat the Chiefs late in the year. Maybe they thought they could make some noise, and then they trade Adams, and everything goes to hell for them. So I think this is a team that could quit. It's not like their coach is going to be back. It'd be shocking if Pierce is brought back. So I think I'm on board with you saying the Dolphins probably the right side, but they're hard to bet. But I may end up betting them by the end of the week. Would you bet the under from Miami wins now or 2 weeks from now? I think definitely 2
I
weeks.
took Miami under 9.5 a long time ago. I was actually thinking of taking the over at 6.5, which is now 7.5, I think. I would lay off now. I think right now the number is spot on.
Okay.
There's like 1 or 2 games later in the season that it's going to come down to. I would for sure wait a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't bet the under until the Green Bay game. So I fully expect them to win the next 2 games and then maybe look at the over under. But I wouldn't play it. I think you missed the window on Miami under.
Yeah. I agree.
They still play the Jets twice. So if the Jets quit, and we'll talk about the Jets later, but if the Jets quit, you don't want to be playing Miami unders against the team that quit.
Yeah, totally. Steve S., do you think the Redskins had a tougher game against the Steelers compared to the Eagles coasting against the Cowboys? Yeah. I mean, but like, what? How does that impact? I don't know. All right, let's get to the Jaguars at the Lions. Lions are favored by 12.5. I believe this is the highest spread we've seen all year. And frankly, I don't think this is high enough. I made this line 14.
Exactly the same as I did.
Nice. Yeah, I like the Lions a lot here. I don't see how the Jaguars compete. Like, really, that game last week was just such a disaster for the Vikings. Like, the Vikings outgained the Jaguars 402 to 143, and they only won by 5. Like what the hell was that? I think the Lions have a much better chance of covering here than the Vikings did. First of all, they're at home, but second, Jared Goff's coming off that 5 interception performance. I think he's going to want to rebound, and I know the Lions are coming off that comeback. I actually looked it up to see how teams have done coming back from down 16 to win the game outright, and it's actually about 500. It's like 16-17 against the spread since the lockout. 16-17-1 against the spread since the lockout, or actually that might be since '89. But either way, like it's 500, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't see how Mac Jones competes against a top 12 defense. The Lions are 11th. I know some of that is with Hutchinson, but they have Zadarius Smith playing this week. And Jacksonville's defense is a mess. They can't stop pass catching running backs, so you have to wonder how they're going to contain Jahmyr Gibbs. I think everything points to the Lions here. And it's not like the Lions are looking ahead to anything. They have the Colts next week. So Detroit should win this easily. I'm going to be laying the 12.5. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I like I said, I thought this line should have been 14. If this is Mac Jones, this game is not going to be close. Pick a number, right? This is going to be the Lions putting up whatever they want. There's no look ahead spot. They're going to put up 34, 35, 40. They've shown, I think, if Goff protects the ball, which after the game he just had, and he didn't play so poorly. I mean, it wasn't like those picks where he's taking shots downfield and he missed. One of the picks was a Hail Mary. It doesn't count. A few of them weren't great throws, but he didn't have a terrible game, which is kind of weird to say given that he really had 4 interceptions. But you know, Texans made plays on the ball, and then of course they found ways to come back and put up enough points and win that game. I expect them to come out here and put up a ton of points. I think this is very similar to the Tennessee game that the Lions had. Now, granted, the Lions didn't put up a lot of offensive yards in that game because they had a bunch of punt returns and kick returns, so they didn't have to put up the yardage. But I don't see how Mac Jones moves the ball in this game. I made the score in this game. Where's my score here? 38-13. And that's probably, I think the Lions will be in the mid-30s. 13 is a generous number for a team that just put up 7 without getting any yards. I think 13 might be a generous number. Jackson, number 29 ranked defense yards per play. Detroit finally didn't cover a game, so maybe that's a way for them to kind of wake up, right? Sometimes you win a game and you didn't play your best, and the coach is able to go back to the film and show them, look at these mistakes. We got to clean this up. We got to do better. So they didn't play a great game, and that gives the coach a way to keep the guys focused. So Jaguars had 3.3 yards per play, totaled 143 yards in the game. I mean, Mac Jones is just awful. Another guy who's not an NFL quarterback.
Yep.
And I finally now, after all these weeks, finally moved Detroit to number 1 in my overall power ratings. So they continue to be kind of, spot proof in a way. I do think next week, and I was just looking to see what I made the line next week. Lions, Colts. I made the line 7. The line is 7. That might be a play where the spot gets in the way, only because they play on Thursday. They play Thanksgiving, and they lost last year on Thanksgiving. So they'll be ready this year on Thanksgiving, but not to look ahead now. I think they put up a big number. I'm surprised this line is under 2 touchdowns. Now, if Lawrence played, I would have made the line closer to 10. Without him, and maybe if he's not officially out, maybe that's why the line's kind of somewhere in the middle. And if he gets ruled out officially, maybe the line does go to 14. But if it's under 14, I'm going to lay the wood. Take the Lions. I've been taking the Lions with a lot of points, laying a lot of points. I usually don't do that, but this has been that one team that's been an exception. So anything under 13.5 or less, lock them up.
Yeah, I don't understand this Lawrence stuff. Like, some reports are saying he's out for the year, and other reports are saying, oh, he might play in this game. Like, which one is it? It's like, pick one. I know he needs surgery on his non-throwing shoulder, but even if he plays, like, we saw Lawrence banged up playing late last year. It was not pretty at all. So I like Detroit either way. Kemi Can Eagle asking, instead of laying 12.5, how about the Lions team total over?
It's a good play.
Yeah, I think so.
What's the over under in this game?
The over under is let's see, it is
47.
Yeah, 47. Yeah.
So they're expecting this game to be like 31-13, 34-13, something in that. No, I'm sorry. What am I saying? 31-13. It's more like you take the line here. 47 is 23. So they're expecting like 30 points. Mm-hmm. They're expecting this game to be close to like 28-14. No, more. What am I saying?
30 to 17.
30 to 16, somewhere in that ballpark. 30 to 16. If the line is under 30, I would consider it. It might be like 28.5 as a team total. 31.5, I'd probably say no, although I do think they'll go over that number. And the reason for that really is if they're up 31-6, there's no real motivation for them. I mean, they have shown that they're going to, run these creative plays. That's when they ran that like weird end around reverse against Dallas. But I think that was more because it was Dallas and they wanted to stick it to them, especially with the linemen scoring. What was that play? They had like Penei Sewell on like a hook and ladder. And I said to you afterwards, I'm like, why are they wasting this? That was one of the coolest plays I've ever seen. Why are they wasting this in a blowout game? And I said, all right, it's probably because they just hate Dallas. and they wanted to stick it to them, and they wanted to show the lineman was involved. But if they're in that situation again, I don't know that they keep their foot on the gas at 30 if it's like a 31-6 game. But yeah, the team total might be a good play.
One of the best things I saw from that Detroit Dallas game, the final play of the game, just a kneel down. It was written at you could check the game tracker, the play-by-play. It says Dan Skipper reports as eligible.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The quarterback, whatever quarterback it was, takes 1 yard loss. Like I was like, that is wonderful. They made him eligible for that kneel down.
I see somebody wrote in the comments that Evan live bet Detroit when they were down big. I looked at it. I was staring at it, and it was 10.5 at the time, and I didn't bet it. And I waited like an extra play or two, and the line became 9.5. I'm like, shoot, I missed the window to take 10.5. And then as far as the money line, I didn't. You know what? I wasn't really playing the game live. I didn't have much action on that game. I was excited for that game. I really wanted to bet Houston plus 3.5 with Nico Collins. And when I saw Nico might play, I picked Houston. But then I saw he wasn't playing. Like, shoot, wait, he was active or he was cleared to practice, but he's not playing in this game. That's weird. Mm-hmm. So then I didn't touch the game, and I felt stupid. And once I missed the line, I actually lost a bet on that game because I had the over at 23.5 I had the over 25.5 for Houston at one point, thinking they're for sure going to kick a field goal. And then I took a fun bet, like one of those like plus 600, 700. I forget what it was exactly. Yes, overtime. So I was really hoping that Houston would come down, kick a field goal, get my over at 25.5, and then Detroit would kick a field goal back, and the game would go to overtime. That didn't happen. So sometimes I watch the live odds, and if you miss a number that you like, just like I said before, you don't have to bet. Stay away. And just enjoy the game. I mean, it was a great game. It wasn't a great game. It was turnover after turnover, but it was a fun game. So I enjoyed the game, but once I missed 10.5, for me, it was like, all right, I'm going to bet overtime for fun and just root for OT. I was shocked that Houston didn't score at the end of that game. And 0 points in the second half. Shocked.
Yeah. Well, they did kick a field goal. They just missed it.
They missed it.
Guy McFerrin, yeah. Mike says McCaffrey questionable for week 1, then he missed 10 weeks. Yeah. Remember, we don't know if he's going to play week 1. And then the other end of that was that all summer they were saying, oh, he has a calf injury. It's like, okay, all right, fine, soft tissue injury. Maybe he misses 1 week or maybe 2. And then he'll be back. And then magically it was an Achilles. And then it was 2 Achilles. And then he had to go to Europe to get evaluated. I agree. It's
but now he's like, questionable with, game too hot.
Yeah.
temperature too hot for McCaffrey.
Too hot. Way too hot to play. I couldn't believe he said that. Like I thought like why isn't he playing a lot? Oh, he's his first game back. Like that's all he had to say. Like
somebody was on a podcast with Debo. Debo has a podcast, and somebody asked him at the end of it, like, "What do you think about the heat?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay, it's going to be hot, so just hydrate."
Yeah.
What are we talking about? It's going to be hot. Great. There's games it's going to be cold. This game's going to be raining. I mean, these are professional athletes. I really don't think Christian McCaffrey cares if it's hot. He's not out of shape. I mean, he hasn't played a lot of football, but he's certainly not out of shape. I mean, if it's hot, that's just ridiculous.
I know.
And it wasn't like 110 degrees hot. 75 degrees and humid.
Yeah, I don't. It's not like Miami in September. I don't like what's going on here. Dale asking, how do I subscribe? Donate to your site. I'm stupid with this jazz and have trouble finding your star picks. Thanks, Dale. Thanks for offering to do that. If you go to waltzerfootball.com, the link's in the description. You go to the picks page and the link's at the top. Go to the picks page. There will be you can see a link where you can subscribe to be a premium subscriber. Like that's the best way. Or you can do super chats this way. But either way, that would be really appreciated. So thank you. Who was this chat that reported he could be put on IR and the very next Sunday the guy played? It's vaguely familiar. I don't remember. But yeah, I know I think I remember what you're saying.
Brian Thomas?
It might, yeah. No, maybe it was him.
Brian Thomas was supposed to be out 2 to 4 weeks, and then
That's right. Yeah. And then then he didn't miss any games. So yeah,
now Mac Jones is throwing him passes.
Right.
I bet he wished he was on IR.
Yeah, he probably should have gone on IR. Anyway, I've trouble getting in these chats as well. I just want to keep up with you guys. You guys are awesome. Yeah, thanks, Dale. Really appreciate it. Yeah, but you can go to the site, walterfootball.com, and there are links there to subscribe on PayPal. But here you can do super chats too. Would you guys start May or Winston? I would go with. I think I'd go with Winston. Actually, it's Saints defense is horrible. I know you're at risk for some picks, but you can get 4 touchdowns instead of you can get 4 touchdowns or 4 picks.
Right.
Just go for the upside.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't see the super chat or super chat symbols on your YouTube page. That's interesting because we do have people super chatting. I wonder if not everyone could see them. I don't know. I mean, Sewer, John Sanders, or K McNeagle, if you guys want to say what you see for these guys. I don't know why it's not showing. I feel like it should be showing, but that's strange. Anyway, let's move on. We have Vikings at Titans. This line is Vikings -6. So here we go again. I had the Vikings last week, and I know you did too, and at least in the contest you did.
The contest I had them at -4.
Right. Yes. Me too. But I had them in real life at -7. And they outgained, as I said, the Jaguars 402 to 143. They somehow, thanks, John 411. Just did what I did. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. Anyway, they outgained the Jaguars, but Sam Darnold threw 2 interceptions into the end zone. He had one other one that was in Jaguars territory. I feel like he cleans up his act this week. If he keeps doing this, he's going to get benched. I think he's going to be more careful with the ball. Titans are down their top 2 cornerbacks. I don't expect Snead to come back, or even if he does, he's not going to be healthy in his first game back. It just feels like Justin Jefferson is going to have a great matchup against these backup cornerbacks. And then on the other side, I think this is probably the biggest mismatch of the week. You have Will Levis against Brian Flores. Will Levis against the blitz is horrible. His completion percentage goes down 10.8 percentage points. His YPA drops, I believe, 1.8 yards. And then he's when he's not blitzed this year, he's actually not bad. He's thrown 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. When he has been blitzed this year, he's thrown 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. The Vikings blitz at the highest rate in the NFL. That's why I bring that up. And Flores is just going to confuse him here. So I'm going to, I guess, what's the definition of insanity? I guess taking the Vikings as road favorites against AFC South teams. But I'm going to be insane. Take the Vikings here -6 and hope Sam Darnold doesn't implode again. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Same idea. To me, Minnesota's off a sloppy win, and when the team plays poorly, they had over 400 yards of offense and couldn't get touchdowns, couldn't get the ball into the end zone. So, yes, they won the game, but a playoff contending team gets to go back to the tape and say, we didn't play well. What can we do to improve? And I expect that they'll have a similar output. Now, obviously, Jacksonville's defense is substantially worse than Tennessee's. But Tennessee's defense is overrated because when they played good teams, let's say they played Buffalo a couple weeks ago, they got gashed. They gave up a ton of yards and a ton of yards per play in that game. So I fully expect Minnesota to bounce back and play well. Tennessee's now 1-8 against the spread. And if you're backing this team, once again, you're backing a team without an NFL quarterback. Levis is a backup. He's not a good backup. He took 7 sacks last week. So when we talked about Chicago, teams that are getting sacked that amount of times, it's not all the offensive line. It's the quarterback who holds onto the ball too long and is not able to make plays downfield. Frankly, Mason Rudolph was probably better or might be better for week in, week out point spread covers than Levis is, because Levis is making those mistakes as well. So I fully expect Minnesota to move the ball. I fully expect Minnesota to defend and shut this Tennessee team down. I don't think Minnesota is going to put up 30, right? So if you're asking them to lay and cover 6, it's not that small of a number. But this game to me is like a 23-13 type of game. Tennessee's not going to put up a lot of points, and Minnesota's not going to have to score much more than 20 to cover. So coming off of a bad performance, and Tennessee, when they've played good teams, has not performed well. They certainly haven't covered. They've only covered 1 out of their 9 games. So I expect Minnesota to win the game. I'm not rushing to put this game as a contest pick here, although I highlighted it as a team that, maybe I'll consider it at 6. If this line were 7, I definitely wouldn't take it as a contest pick because I think the line is somewhat correct. But, it's in consideration. I fully expect them to play better, and I fully expect them to win. So, Do I want to lay 6? No. but I'm certainly not going to be on Tennessee in this game.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the $2 super sticker. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your support, guys. This is awesome. We have 3 guys, Can Make an Eagle, John Sanders, and Frizzle contributing today. So thank you so much, guys. Just means a lot. Can Make an Eagle asking, what about Tennessee's defense, Darnold versus Tennessee's defense? You said it. Tennessee's defense overrated. They're only 19th in defensive EPA. They've had a lot of injuries. Now, I think at the beginning of the year when they had both those cornerbacks, Awuzie and Snead, like they looked a lot better. They also had Ernest Jones. They traded him. So they've lost a lot of talent. And so it's not a surprise that they've done worse recently. And just look at last week. The Chargers moved the ball pretty easily against them. They had that one miscue where it wasn't really a miscue, but a bad coaching decision on the first drive where they kicked the field goal at the 2. You actually, as soon as that happened, I'm like, I know Evan's watching this. Like he's gonna be stewing about this, and then you just text me right away. I'm like, yeah, that was just like such a bad decision, but it was awful. But no, outside of that, the Chargers had an excellent game offensively against them, and I feel like Minnesota is going to do the same. So
I mean, when they played good teams, they gave up a lot of yards. Malik Willis was able to move the ball at will for Green Bay. Buffalo put up over 7 yards per play. I know Detroit didn't have as many yards, but they didn't have to because they didn't have the ball as much with the short fields that they created with special teams. But when they had the ball, what they do? They gave up a 75-yard touchdown run to Gibbs, and they allowed 50 plus points in that game. So when they step up in class, they're not as good as what their EPA or what the yards per play shows. Again, I don't trust Minnesota as an offense like Detroit, but I don't think they have to score much more than 20, 23, 24 points to cover because I don't see Will Levis scoring on this defense. And you didn't see Mac Jones score on this defense. You're not going to see Will Levis score on this defense either. And that's going to be the game. It's going to be 20-10, 23-13, something in that ballpark. So if you're under 7, you're probably okay. But is it a top 5 pick? Not for me. Probably not.
Okay. What's Jake Locker up to? I actually just Googled it. Jake Locker owns a gym. So that's what he's up to. So there you go. All right. So we have our last early game, rather. We have the Colts of the Jets. Jets are favored by 4, which I'm kind of surprised by this line movement. Although the quote unquote Sharps have been on the Jets all year, and they were right in that Houston game on Thursday night, but it feels like they've been wrong every other time. I don't really, again, I keep saying the same thing over and over about these Jets games. Like, I just don't know what to make of it because the Jets have a lot of talent, but they're very poorly coached by Ulbrich. Like, they should not have. Okay, even if they fired Saleh, they should have given the interim job to the special teams coordinator so Ulbrich can focus on defense. Now, with Ulbrich head coaching, the defense has fallen off, and he's just not making good in-game decisions. So, like, they're getting hit on both sides. But if you look at this matchup, like it's really good for the Jets. Like Aaron Rodgers has been awful against the blitz this year, but the Colts blitz like very infrequently. Like Gus Bradley just doesn't like the blitz at all, and it feels like Aaron Rodgers should tear apart this defense. But that would require you trusting Aaron Rodgers and just believing that the Jets team is going to keep trying hard, which I don't know because I don't know if they will because they did not try hard against Arizona. They just quit. And so, but then on the other hand, you have Joe Flacco, who's just an interceptions machine. And I feel like they have to go back to Richardson at some point soon because, Flacco is seen as the safe guy, but he's throwing picks. So, like, what's the point? You might as well play Richardson. So, I guess I'm leaning Jets here, but there's no way I'm betting this game. Do you have anything on this?
Well, I shouldn't make comments on Jets because I've just been wrong every week. Can't seem to figure this team out. But here you kind of have to throw matchups out for a minute. The question in this game is, will the Jets try? Period. It really starts and ends there. Will the Jets try? The coaching has been miserable. The defense refuses to tackle. Rodgers is out of sync. They're off an embarrassing loss. I heard today that before that game even started, they're score watching. Like they're watching Denver lost and another team lost that's ahead of them in the standings. It's like, oh, this is great. We're really scoreboard watching now in week 10. Like you finally get a win against Houston. You have extra rest, and you show up, and you refuse to tackle. Arizona could have scored 50 in that game if they really tried. They didn't try, and I actually lost because I live bet Arizona when my friend is telling me he's live betting Arizona minus 23. I'm like, yeah, that's actually not a bad bet. But I think Arizona might win by 23 because they'll keep scoring and maybe Rodgers will put together some drives. And they put up 6 points against the Cardinals defense. That's crazy. That's a team that's just completely in a mindset of we don't care. The defense certainly has been playing that way. I don't know what their game plans are week in, week out. So now I'm going to start backing this team. I picked them against Houston. I didn't bet it, but I picked it. I've been rooting for it because I have live over 7.5 wins, which has probably gone up in smoke. I think the total is now 6.5 wins. So do I just can't trust the Jets in any capacity. Now, the Colts, you said it. Flacco's thrown 6 picks in the last 2 games. He's turned back into a pumpkin. He can't throw the ball deep. He doesn't. He looks like a deer in the headlights back there now. And I don't know what happened in the last 2-3 games, but you really can't start going back and forth with Richardson because that's not just a game plan for him. The game plan for Richardson has to now be, okay, you're going to sit back and you're going to watch and you're going to learn. They're now, what are they, 4-6? So this is basically a must-win game, obviously for both teams.
3-7.
The Colts are 4-6. All right, so if the Colts win, I mean, if they lose this game, they drop to 4-7. Plus, they'll be behind the Jets in the tiebreaker, obviously. So, do they go back to Richardson? Is that the best way to get him ready? I mean, they don't seem to have a plan. But I have these 2 teams. I finally have the Jets as a below-average team. I had them as an above-average team. They certainly have above-average talent. They have well below-average coaching, and they have a well below-average attitude. So I move them. They're kind of tied with the Colts. I don't really give the Jets much home field advantage. Their crowd seems to be booing them more than cheering for them, and rightfully so. So I would make this line under a field goal. I texted you Sunday night. I bet this. I actually bet it, but I just saw the line at 3.5 because it was 3.5 on FanDuel and 3 everywhere else. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to bet 3.5, and then if I don't like it, I'll just buy back the Jets later. But now the line moved to 4. Where's the line right now? Because I saw it at 4 at some point. And now the line is still 4. Yeah. I don't get it. Who is betting the Jets at minus 3.5? First of all, you should never bet at minus 3.5 early in the week. That makes no sense. Because if the line does move to 3, you'll get minus 3. And if the line goes from 3.5 to 4, is there really such a big difference? If you're laying 3.5 and 4, the answer is no, mathematically at least. So I don't know who's betting the Jets right now that's moving this number to 4, but I'm baffled by it. I just don't get it. I don't know who's trusting the Jets. I would lean towards the Colts getting 3.5, 4 points. Again, is this a contest pick? Probably not. The Colts were 7-1 against the spread. They failed to cover the last 2 games. I think they'll have success moving the ball, especially in the run game. I don't know how this game is above a field goal. So just from a power ratings spread perspective, I feel like I'm getting value. I don't really trust the Colts, but I feel like I'm getting value in the number. So I would take the 3.5, 4 and give me a maybe. Not in a rush to bet on or against the Jets because I just can't seem to figure them out. But they may have quit. And if they lose this game, then for sure they're done. They should be dropped dramatically in the power ratings if they lose. Yeah. If they win, like we said 2 weeks ago, all right, I had the Jets last week. I thought coming off a win in a must-win spot against Arizona, who was maybe overrated, this was a great spot. And they got blown out of the water from the jump. So no idea what to make of this team. How they're favored by 4. I need somebody to explain to me why they're betting the Jets. And then I'm just going to shake my head and say, all right, we'll see what happens. But I'm on the 3.5, 4 because the line's too big.
Yeah, John is asking if it's Richardson or Flacco. I haven't seen anything on the.
I don't even care at this point who the quarterback is.
It's true.
Honestly, I thought Flacco was a slight upgrade. I don't know. I mean, Richardson, he's inaccurate, but he makes the play downfield. He also has mobility. Yeah. If Flacco, who has no mobility, is throwing picks instead of touchdowns, then yeah, maybe I go back to I call him a rookie because he hasn't played any games, but you're killing the kid's development. If he's not ready to play, then sit him down. If he's ready to play, then play him. But you can't keep taking a guy in and out of the lineup. And I heard somebody say, well, it's because he took himself out of the game. That's ridiculous. You're either playing him or you're not. I mean, he's not going to learn. He's not going to earn trust of his teammates or get any better. If you think the best thing for him is to sit, then sit him and sit him for the rest of the season. They're not winning the Super Bowl this year. They're probably not going to the playoffs this year. At this point, if the best thing for him is to sit, then let him sit. And we'll just, we'll see what happens with Flacco. But I don't have a strong conviction. If this line was 2.5, I'd walk very far away. But at 3.5, 4, something doesn't make sense there.
Yeah, I agree. I heard a rumor that it's Irsay making the call here. I'm interested to sit him.
Okay.
So
No,
yeah,
I mean, listen, the owner is the team. He owns the team. He can make whatever decision he wants.
it kind of reminds me of the Browns owner just refusing to bench Deshaun Watson. The decision was made for him, I guess. I've been drafting Richardson or Trey Lance in like the 19th round of best ball this week. So figure one of them is going to start eventually and get some rushing yards for me, hopefully. But I think it is Flacco this week. Like I said, I haven't seen anything. Just says this line seems like it's begging for Colts money. Feels shady. I don't get this at all. I don't get this line. I agree. I don't really understand it. Do you like the adjusted line, the Colts plus 7.5 with another game adjusted 3 to 4 points? Like the 3 to 4
I don't
points.
play adjusted lines like that. I play it live.
Yeah.
This is the game where if the Jets go up like 7-0 early, maybe you get a better number on the Colts.
Yes. Yeah. Stanley asking, hey Walt, do you think Buffalo will upset the Chiefs? We'll get to that in a second. And you should put the Chiefs on your overrated list. The thing is, like with the Chiefs on the overrated list, like they're gonna bring it in the playoffs, so it's hard to justify that. But like, yeah, in the regular season, they're just not winning by margin. But that's what they always do. Last year they even lost to the Raiders on Christmas. They lost to the Packers Sunday Night Football. They lost to the Broncos in the second meeting, and yet they won the Super Bowl. Like they don't treat these regular season games, as if they're very meaningful. And that they keep on winning. So maybe that means they're really good. By the way, guys, check out this video here that I posted. I don't know, Evan. I don't know if you ever played Mega Man 2 or any Mega Man, but they had AI had the robots fight each other. I thought it was really cool. I was like trying to figure out who's going to win.
I've never heard of that.
You never heard of Mega Man? Really?
No.
Oh my god! As a Nintendo game I used to play when I was a kid. You had to go to like different levels, fight the robots, and then you get their weapons.
On regular old school Nintendo?
Old school Nintendo. Yeah,
I only remember a Super Bowl, Tecmo Super Bowl.
Okay.
Nintendo.
No, they've had 10 Mega Man. They've had 10 Mega Mans and Mega Man X's. They've had like 16 games or so. Mega Man 2, one of my favorite games of all time. So I enjoyed that video. So I'll ask Tom. Tom's going to be on Saturday. I know because he's done Mega Man speed runs. So I'm going to have him guess who the winner would be. So anyway, all right, let's get to the late games. We have Seahawks and Niners. Niners are favored by 6.5. I can almost hear you saying this in my head. There's no way you take the Niners here minus 6.5 because they make a lot of dumb decisions. They also struggle in the red zone. They are, I believe, 28th in red zone offense compared to first last year. Now, I said last week I thought Christian.
I'm glad I'm rubbing off on you.
I said last week I thought Christian McCaffrey would fix that. He didn't fix that. They only converted 1 of 3 in the red zone. Last week, it was a great pass to Kittle for a touchdown, which actually got us over receiving yards for Kittle, which is our prop bet for the game. But here, like they already beat Seattle once. I know they beat Seattle by 12, but they had a couple advantages in that game. Like first of all, it was a Thursday night game, which favors the better team as long as they're focused. And second, they had Brandon Ayuk. Now I know that McCaffrey's playing, but they also had Jordan Mason and Garendo went nuts in that game. Seattle's just awful against the run. So really, it doesn't matter who the running back is. Like they're going to gash Seattle on the ground. Now, it's going to matter for red zone offense with McCaffrey, but still, it didn't really last week. So I don't know. I have to see the Niners play well in the red zone to lay 6.5 with them, unless they're playing a terrible team. Seattle's not good, but they're not terrible either. So I feel like they can hang around. I still would lean Niners in an office pool. I just don't like Seattle at all. I think Seattle kind of sucks. Their defense is terrible. Geno Smith's falling off, and I like how the Niners match up with the Seattle offense. Like Niners can take away the run, and they can also defend number 1 receivers. They're weak to number 2 receivers. That's like Lockett's like 31. So again, lean Niners, but I'm not betting them. So who do you have here?
Yeah, so you took the words out of my mouth. So obviously I'm on Seattle in this game. So you got to look at the Niners in kind of 2 different ways. When you talk about matchup, they're going to have the matchup edge pretty much against every team in the NFL, right? They have top offense. They have top potential. They're going to move the ball. And with McCaffrey back and getting back into the groove, they have potential to be the best offense in the league. They're also very good defensively. They're not great. They're not poor. I don't care what the metrics say. They still have Bosa, Fred Warner. They just gave Diamador Lenore a 5-year, $92 million contract, which made me sick. And I kind of stopped. I was driving at the time, and I kind of looked down and like, what? That's a waste of resources. But anyway, Matchup wise, they're going to dominate these teams, but you really have to throw it out the window because you have to expect three things in these games. Number one, the coach loves to kick a field goal. He loves kicking field goals, short, long. Actually, I shouldn't say long. He punted last week, first drive from the 39-yard line, 4th and 7, 39-yard line. If you draft a kicker, I don't care what round it is. If you draft a kicker, you better attempt a 56-yard field goal in somewhat decent conditions. If you're not attempting the field goal, you better go for it. He punted. That's idiotic. Okay, that's number one. So you know you're going to have poor coaching decisions with field goals. Number two is we talked about special teams. You have to come to expect it, whether it's not making field goals, not covering punt returns or kick returns, muffing punts. These things happen now every single week. There's something happening on special teams that is a gaffe. You look at a team like Pittsburgh on the flip side of that. Every week they make a positive play on special teams, whether it's a block kick, forcing another team into a muffed punt. These are all things it really kind of starts with coaching and preparation throughout the week. And the third thing with the Niners is they blow leads. They've blown leads every single week. They blew a lead against Seattle a couple of weeks ago. They've now blown games. Forget the lead. They blew the game against Arizona. They blew the game against the Rams without half a team. They blew the lead against Dallas. And Dallas, the shitty Dallas team, had the ball late down by 6. They almost blew that. Last week, they had a double-digit lead. They blew it, right? They actually gave up the lead before they took the lead back. And this very Seattle team a few weeks ago, they blew the game. They didn't blow the game. They blew the lead. They blew the lead that they had, and Seattle had the ball down 6 or 5 late in the game with a chance to win. So if you know these things going in, you can't trust this team to cover numbers. Now, historically, this is one of the teams that the Niners have kind of dominated over the last few years. They've won. This is like the only matchup where they actually cover. The last 6 games they played against Seattle, they won by 20, 8, 18, 18, 12, and 12. Right? It's all right. Well, they don't play close games against Seattle. But until they start converting red zone, which I think will regress somewhat to the mean now with McCaffrey, as long as he plays, right? If they're not going to stop kicking field goals, that's a coaching decision that kind of has already been made. And until their special teams gets cleaned up, this is just not a team you can trust. So you continue to bet this team in the first half, and when they have a lead, especially a double-digit lead, bet against them. And will they hold on to a 6-point spread? It's like I'm looking at the lines like, well, the line was 3.5, 4 on the road. So how can the line not be closer to a touchdown here? Shouldn't this line make sense? But I can tell you they'll probably be up by 10 to 14 points. And at some point, Seattle will have the ball with a chance for a backdoor cover or, dare I say, a chance to win the game. So I don't trust this team. I don't like the coaching. I don't like the kicker. I don't like the specials. It's not a team I can trust at this point in the season. Until proven otherwise, they're a team that can win any game. They can win the Super Bowl. They can also miss the playoffs and finish 9-8 or 8-9 because the schedule coming up is rough. So those 2 games that they blew and lost, I really hope that doesn't come down to bite them at the end. But they're a Super Bowl winning team that might find themselves out of the playoffs because of the 3 things that I mentioned. So when you're betting on them and you're laying points, know those things going in. Don't be surprised when they bite you.
Yeah, I definitely get it, what you're saying. I'm nowhere near betting this game. My lean on the Niners is just my disdain for Seattle. Just don't think they're any good. But you're right. It's probably going to be a 13-point game, and Seattle's going to get the backdoor cover with like 30 seconds left or something.
I mean, if they have their 3 receivers in the game, I have no confidence in the Niners getting a stop late if they're up by 2 scores. None.
Yeah.
None. That's a great – I did this last week. We talked about, live betting late in the game. It was a Seahawks-Rams game. Seattle was – they were down by 7 late. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take plus 900. Why not? Mm-hmm. And they marched down the field. They converted 3rd and long, 4th and long. I think it was a 4th down. And they got the touchdown. And then we hedged. And, that's the same thing you'll do in this game. They're down by 7 or 10 points. It's a great bet to take them to score that, come back, make the game a 1-score game. I would never lay the 6.5 points this season. In the past, I have. Yeah. In that playoff game a couple of years, Niners won 3 games. I think it was 2 years ago, including Seattle in the playoffs. Just killed them every game. It's like they have the matchup. They're running away from some of these teams. This year, it's not been the case. And I think this year, that's going to be their downfall. Those 2 games that they blew and some of these other games that are getting too close for comfort, it might cost them the division. If they don't win the division, they might not make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, they were first in red zone offense last year, and now they're 28th. So it's just a big difference. They'll suggest they won't let me donate. I mean, what exactly are you seeing, Dale? I don't know why it won't let you. Maybe you don't have an account linked to this or something. Like I said, you can go to the site, go to the picks page. You'll see a link that says walterfootball.com premium. And that's a great way to do it because you can get ad free on the site, which is I've heard it's a great experience. I know that I know that I've seen it, but people have told me that it's a great experience. Kim McNeagle says Arizona +1 at Seattle next week. Someone else brought that up, I think, or maybe it was no, it was Kim McNeagle. What do you think about Arizona +1 at Seattle next week?
I think the line's right. I did my lines earlier. I made it 1.5. Line open 1.
Yeah.
I don't know who I like next week. I want to see what happens this week. I want to see what happens with Seattle this week. And if they're coming off of a blowout loss, then I like them next week. If they win the game, I don't like them next week.
Mm-hmm.
So I like playing the situational game, situational spot with some of these, especially divisional games. It's a toss-up game. I certainly wouldn't bet that now. So file it away and reconsider Sunday night, Monday.
Okay. All right. Next game we have Falcons to the Broncos. The Broncos are -2. Frankly, don't know what to make of this game. I don't like either team. I feel like both are overrated. Atlanta has their great offense, but their defense is pretty bad. They can't get after the quarterback. They can't stop the pass. Run defense not too bad, but overall it's pretty bleak there defensively. And then with the Broncos, we talked about it all the time. Like this Denver team has gotten these fluky wins against teams that just were in bad spots. Like they got the Buccaneers when they had the revenge against the Lions. They got the Jets when the Jets are flying overseas. And plus we've seen how bad the Jets have been since. They got the Saints when the Saints are missing like half their roster. It just feels like this record is not legit. They should not be 5-5. This is probably more like a 4-6 or 3-17, probably 4-6. And so I don't know if they deserve to be favored here, but then again, I don't want to take Atlanta either. Just not a big believer in them. Plus, like, this game doesn't mean too much for Atlanta. Like they're like on cruise control. So I'm leaning Atlanta, but don't really see anything here outside of teasing this up. Atlanta +2 to +8. Who do you like here?
I like Atlanta here. I thought Atlanta should have been favored here for the reasons you mentioned. I think Denver is obviously overrated. I really like Atlanta. Atlanta plays a lot of these 1-2 point games. We've talked about this before. Koo missed a bunch of field goals last week. I feel like a lot of these Atlanta games come down to that late field goal, even in a 3-point game. They put up 400 plus, almost 500 yards of offense, and they missed field goals and couldn't get the ball in the end zone. So I fully expect them to bounce back and play better. Now, Denver, this is like one of those weird case studies. We've seen this now a couple times this year, kind of a gut punch loss. How do they respond to a game where they really felt they won, right? We saw this with Chicago and the Redskins. The Hail Mary loss kind of derailed their season, right? Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had the Raiders played Kansas City. He put all their eggs in that basket. They come into that game. They want to win. They have the secret formula, Antonio Pierce says, and they covered. They backdoor covered that game, and then the week later they get blown out against Cincinnati because they just put so much energy and effort into the Kansas City game. Denver has played Kansas City very well over the years. We had Denver last week. I had them in the contest +8. They should have won the game. That game was over. They converted the 3rd and 6 to keep the clock running. Like that was the play of the game. Usually that's where Spags sends the zero blitz against a rookie quarterback, and they're going to get a stop. And now Mahomes is going to get the ball back. They'll be down by 1, and the game's over. Mahomes is going to figure out a way. We also said last week that the Chiefs just do exactly enough to win these games. And somehow, again, call it luck. Maybe it's a lot of luck. I mean, how often do you see blocked field goals? But they had like 3 guys getting through that line. If it wasn't Chenal, somebody else would have blocked it. So that's a huge punch in the gut for a young team. So how do they respond now is going to be very interesting to see. And I think that's a tough pill to swallow and a tough game to kind of recover from. Atlanta blew the game. Is it a big game for Atlanta that they lost? I mean, they kind of have the division not wrapped up, but they have a commanding lead with their divisional wins. But I expect them to bounce back Denver's played well. I mean, defensively, they've played really well. I give them credit. Even though they've played a poor schedule, like you said, they've played well. They did really well last week against the Kansas City team that was sleepwalking. But I like Atlanta here because I thought they'd be favored by 2.5, and I probably wouldn't want them. But as a dog, I think I'm on Atlanta. Again, I highlighted this as one of my maybes, so I'm not rushing to play 2.5 in a contest, but I lean Atlanta here.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, this is going to be a teaser game for me. And if we win our first leg, maybe we try to middle this. But yeah, I think you make a good case for Atlanta for sure. And it does seem like Denver would be like the Raiders, like would be flattened.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how they respond.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember that the Broncos got shellacked by the Ravens the prior week too. So I'm not a big believer in this team. John says I'm rooting for the Broncos to get the 7th seed. So I'm not, because that means they get their over win total, which
I bet under 8.5 last week. Last week or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago I took under 8.5 wins.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it was great that the block kick, and that definitely makes it a much better bet right now. I like that for sure. All right, so we mentioned the Chiefs. We have the big game of the week, Chiefs at the Bills. I think a lot of people are surprised to see that the Bills are favored by 2.5. There's so much money coming in on the Chiefs, and I don't blame people. I mean, the Chiefs are 9-0. All they do is win games, and so all you need for them to do is win this game, and you get your money. And even if they lose by 1 or 2 points, you still get your money. So the public is all over Kansas City. I get it. But then again, Buffalo built their team to beat the Chiefs. And they've done that, not in the playoffs, but in the regular season. In the regular season, they routinely beat the Chiefs. And they did so last year in the regular season. I think they could do that again. They have a really good matchup here with Dalton Kincaid against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been so bad against tight ends. And so I feel like Kincaid should go off, and Amari Cooper might be back. And of course, Josh Allen, who hasn't run all that much this year compared to prior years, like he's going to run a lot in this game. Like he's been saving his legs for that. So this is Buffalo Super Bowl, or regular season Super Bowl at least. Like they're going to be trying really hard here, and the Chiefs are coming off the blocked field goal. It feels like they're almost playing with house money at this point. So I'm on Buffalo, but I don't know. Like fading Mahomes as a dog just feels stupid. Like maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I should be betting Buffalo, but I don't know if I can pull the trigger. Maybe you can talk me into it. Who do you like here?
Yeah, so I mean, the two obvious things in this game, obviously, number one, Mahomes a dog, bet Mahomes, right? If you do that every single time between now and the time he retires, you're going to win a lot of money because he's going to continue to hit at above 50% as a dog. He's proven it, and there's no reason to logically assume otherwise. The other obvious point to mention here is the Chiefs are overrated. That doesn't mean they're bad. They're just not as good as what 9-0 states, right? 4 or 5 of those games came down to weird calls, a pass interference that wasn't called with the Atlanta game in the end zone, a phantom holding or PI on 4th and 16 against Cincinnati, Likely's toe coming out of bounds. I mean, 9-0 could easily be 6-3, or maybe 5-4. So they're overrated, and those two are two obvious points. The thing to mention, and I think you kind of touched on this briefly with last year, regular season, is these two teams have played 6 times in the last couple of years. The Chiefs are 3-0 in the playoffs. The Bills are 3-0 in the regular season. And that's really what I'm going on here, because I agree and I like the Bills. Now, I don't love laying 2.5 because this kind of feels like it could be one of those 24-23, 26-24 back and forth 1-2 point games. So I don't like that this line moved from 1.5 up to 2.5. But I agree with the line move. I think the Bills are the right side. This game means a lot more to Buffalo. They look forward to this game every year. This is their Super Bowl. This is the game they have to win. Now, you could say that Kansas City wins this game, and they can basically wrap up the 1 seed by Thanksgiving, which is nuts. Yeah. I mean, they already beat Baltimore. They beat Cincinnati. They have the division pretty much locked up, and now they're going to beat Buffalo. So there's no competition left for them in the regular season. It's kind of crazy. So do they really need this game? No. They know they're going to win in the playoffs. Now, one thing I noticed, and I've seen this now a bunch of times, including the playoff games with Buffalo, the play calling at the end of the games makes no sense. Like, Mahomes knows he's going to get the ball. He knows he's going to win. The problem is Buffalo also knows that Mahomes is going to get the ball and they're going to lose. Last year in the playoffs, if you think back, they ended up getting into field goal range, right? Which they ended up missing.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a minute left on the clock. And the whole goal there is to do what Denver did last week. Run the clock out. You do not want to give Mahomes the ball. What did he do? Allen chucks the ball into the end zone on 2 straight plays. First of all, even if he scored a touchdown there, you don't want to score there. You just don't want to give the ball back to Mahomes with time on the clock. But he's taking low percentage plays. And we've seen this now time and time again with Buffalo, throwing the ball deep in weird situations where it's unwarranted, where you want to control clock. You got to play the situation. And their coaches might not understand this because I've seen it not only in the Chiefs games in the playoffs, but in other games as well in the regular season. It happened actually a couple of weeks ago in the Baltimore game, where if you remember, they were down big. They kind of stabilized the game. They got across midfield and took 3 shots to the end zone and didn't go anywhere. It's like, what are we doing here? Play it smart. So they don't do that. So that gives me a reason for concern playing on Buffalo. But I lean Buffalo. I'm probably playing this. Like, I don't want that 2.5 to scare me away when I do think they're going to win. So I don't think Kansas City's going undefeated. They've been playing with fire every week. I certainly trust Mahomes late in the game if the game is close. But I can see Buffalo winning this game by a margin. They actually did win a game in the regular season a couple of years ago by, I think it was like 38-20. So that was the one blowout in this matchup. Otherwise, every game is close, and Kansas City finds the ways to win the big ones. And Buffalo wins the regular season when it doesn't really make a difference. So, yeah, somebody just commented, McDermott managed the end of the game. Like, yeah, you have to expect it. We expect that if Josh Allen has the ball with a minute to go in field goal range to win the game, he's going to chuck the ball into the end zone and try to score. And that makes no sense. And then, of course, you have to make a kick. Bass missed the kick last year in the playoffs. Shame. That would have been. I would have liked to see Kansas City get the ball late with a chance, but he missed the kick, and that was it. I thought Buffalo was going to the Super Bowl last year, so I think Buffalo wins this game. Kansas City will get him back in the playoffs, but I like Buffalo here, and I think this is probably better for Kansas City to lose the game. I would be very curious to see what would happen late in the season if they're undefeated. I don't see a lot of losses on their schedule coming up for Kansas City after this one.
Yeah, something to keep in mind if you have Chiefs fantasy players. If they win this game, you might want to trade them away because they may not.
They're not going to play in the fantasy playoffs. Exactly.
Yeah, in Week 17, Andy Reid has a history of not playing his starters in meaningless games, even if
that's a Christmas game. That's Christmas Day.
Yep.
I mean, it'd be pretty crazy if he shoves it to the league and benches his guys in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day.
Yep. Yeah.
What he did for the 100 people left in Circa Survivor, where you have to make a pick that day, who have all been saving Kansas City for then.
Yep. That's
going to be interesting.
Well, hopefully they save Pittsburgh too. They could. Well, that in before Carson Wentz comes in and beats the Steelers, which is going to happen. Broncos a big plus 160. Walt, if not them, who do you like? Who do you think gets the 7 seed in Cincinnati in AFC? I think it's Cincinnati. I think they bounce back. We'll get to that game, but I
agree with you. I don't think Denver's making the playoffs. I think Cincinnati's going to get in over them.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, it's crazy. Cincinnati has lost to Baltimore in 2 games by 4 combined points. Like, they're so close to being 6-4 instead of 4-6 right now. I think they bounce back. Plus, it's Joe-vember, as the media told us. So how can they possibly lose? All right, so let's get to why not? Bengals at the Chargers. Line is Chargers minus 1.5. So it's a frustrating game because Chargers are underrated. I've been on the Chargers for many of the games this year, and they've rewarded me. Ever since Justin Herbert got healthy, we've been on them a lot. And so I know they're underrated, and yet it's not. This line is just not correct. Like, Chargers by 1.5. I think they are the better team. So it feels like they should be favored by more, like maybe up to 2.5 or 3. I know they don't have much of a home field advantage, although that's kind of changed under Harbaugh so far. But it feels like this line should be higher. But then, I want to take the Bengals because Joe Burrow's coming off a loss. Like, I know I just said the Chargers are the better team, but I love backing these great quarterbacks coming off a loss. And the Bengals, this is like do or die for them. Like, they have to win this game. And so I think I like the spot for them. I like Burrow for loss. But I feel like we should be getting 3 or 2.5. I mean, 2.5 not a big deal, but 3. I feel like we should be getting that because the Chargers are better than the Bengals. So Yeah, I'm leaning Bengals small play. I guess this is definitely a teaser leg. So I guess Atlanta and Cincinnati are going to tease them. Yeah, so who do you like here?
So I like Cincinnati, and you've been right more than I have on the Chargers. But I don't think the Chargers are the better team.
Okay.
I have Cincinnati the better team. And if I look at resumes, right, let's look at the Charger games. I want to pull up my Charger schedule here. Give me a half a second.
Okay. While you do that, I'll say.
I got it. I got it open.
Okay.
Raiders. Here are their wins. There's 6 wins. Raiders, Panthers, Broncos, Saints with Rattler, Browns, Titans.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I'm not impressed, right? Yes, they've played their schedule, and that's all you can do. They won the games, and they've comfortably won pretty much all of those games. All those teams they should have beaten, they beat them. But I don't see a good win on that schedule. They lost to the Steelers. They lost to Kansas City. They didn't score in the second half. And they played a poor game against Arizona. They probably could have, should have won, but I don't think they played well in that game. So I don't see a resume building win in that situation. Now, Cincinnati, on the flip side, you said it. Their 2 losses against the Ravens were by a combined 4 points. Those were impressive games, impressive losses. If there is a loss that's impressive. And the Chiefs game, they beat the Chiefs. That was a 4th and 16 PI that, that's what Mahomes does. And the Chiefs do is they get those penalties for them, either a non-call or a call for them. And if Cincinnati, if this happened, if that happened, they have more wins. To me, they're a lot better than 4-6. Obviously, they lost the first game of the season because they never prepared in week 1, which is a joke. But they shouldn't have lost that game. They're obviously a lot better than the Patriots. If you flip the record and you call them 7-3, which is I think what their profile is, to me they're more of a 7-3 team instead of a 4-6 team. That to me is a better team. Now their defense hasn't been great, although they're 6th in yards per play against rushing. So they have done a lot better. Last week they were great against the rush. Baltimore probably had their worst game rushing last week. So I've been more impressed with Cincinnati in their losses. Some of their wins I haven't been super impressed with. I mean, obviously they didn't look good against the Giants. They weren't great against Carolina. They certainly weren't good against Cleveland. They needed a punt return or a kick return in the beginning of that game. So I've been more impressed with them in their losses than I have been in their wins. They're also obviously a must-win situation. Borrow at night. I thought this game should have been closer to a pick'em. Obviously, I want to pay attention to T. Higgins, which is big, and the left tackle, Brown. Got to see if these guys are in. I did see a report that they were, I guess, likely to practice this week, so that's good. But the very fact that I'm just not impressed yet with the Chargers, I'll be impressed with the Chargers in 4 weeks. I want to see what happens with them this game when they play Baltimore, then they play at Atlanta and at Kansas City. In 4 weeks, you will know are the Chargers an above-average team, or are they a fraud because of their schedule? If they go 0-4 in the next 4 games, I mean, they're not going to be one of your top 10 teams. If they go 1-3, they're probably not one of your top 10 teams. So I'd like to see how they perform in the next 4 weeks against quality opponents before I put them in that top 10. I think I'm getting the better team in desperation mode. I also like the aggression. We talked about this from a coaching perspective all the time. Cincinnati went for 4th down last week a lot, and that really kind of helped them potentially win that game, is going for 4th downs. You know who didn't go for a 4th down? John Harbaugh on the first drive of the game against the freaking Titans from the 2-yard line. How is that possible? I would much rather have Tennessee pinned back at the 2 than take a field goal and kick off. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's one of the drives where the Titans scored. I'm just quickly pulling up my play-by-play, and I'm right. They get a field goal from the 2-yard line.
Yeah.
And on the second drive, they kick off, and the drive starts at the 28, and 72 yards, 7 plays later, it's 7-3 Titans. Really? That's a disaster. That's a disgrace on Harbaugh. Go for it, probably get the touchdown, go up 7-0, or don't get it and pin Will Levis back at the 2-yard line. You cannot kick a field goal from the 2-yard line and then kick off and put the ball on the 30 or the 28-yard line and give up 7. So I love the fact that I get an aggressive coach in desperation mode with a better quarterback who who should be able to move the ball, especially if Higgins is back. In a pick'em game where there's no home field advantage at night. And like I said, Cincinnati, if they're going to make the playoffs, it starts now. If they lose this game, drop to 4-7, then I don't see it. They win this game, and also talking about a wild card, that would be a tiebreaker between them and the Chargers potentially if they eventually end up tied. So huge game for Cincinnati, not as big of a game for the Chargers. Give me the team with the more, in my opinion, better resume that's in desperation mode with a more aggressive coach, and I expect the Chargers to win.
So Evan, educate Eagle in the chat about the SNF under.
I don't know if there's a trend this year towards Sunday Night Football unders, but I can tell you with every single live game, you should take the first half under. And then 7 to 8 minutes later, bet the over in the first half. Or if you like an over, wait 7 or 8 minutes because every single one of these primetime games starts slow. So on Thursday, Sunday, Monday, they all start slow. The first halves generally go under. And if you're playing a 23.5 or 24.5 and you play the under, you'll probably get to come back with a 20.5 over or something in that middle range. Even when like Miami the other night or last night scored a touchdown early right away, boom, touchdown, there's no points the rest of the half. So these first halves have started very slow, primetime games. I love going into a game, just throwing money on the under in the half and turning around 8 minutes later, 2-3 minutes left in the first quarter playing over. And there's a mathematical reason why I like that. In addition to the fact that these games are just starting slow, I'll just quickly give you what it is. The over-under for the half is divided by 30 minutes. It's like, oh, well, shit, that's obvious. Like, no, it's not so obvious because the first quarter is usually, let's say, 10. The second quarter is usually more like a 13. Why? Obviously, because they ended a half, right? So why then wouldn't the algorithm for the live number shade accordingly? It doesn't. The live algorithm divides exactly by 30 minutes. Every minute that goes on, depending where the ball is on the field, the over-under will adjust exactly where that ball is and what the expected points are per minute. So if you have a line that is adjusting live divided by 30 minutes, when there's more points generally later, so you could take advantage by playing the under early and then coming back and playing the over late. And usually you end up with a middle situation. Doesn't always work, but almost foolproof. Wait. If you like an over, just wait. If you like an under, bet it before the game. And if you just want to have some fun, play the first half under, wait like 2 or 3 drives, see what the situation looks like, come back, play half your bet on the over, and you will often get a good chance at a middle in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. It's worked for us a few times. We had a question from Jesse asking how teams have performed heading into their bye as favorites of 3 or less. They are 99 and 88 against the spread for 52.9%. So that applies to the Saints and the Bills this week. However, if you flip this to favorites of 3.5 or more, you get a better result. You get 245 and 185 against the spread for 57%. So that applies to the Jets this week. So if you want to take the Jets, there might be a reason to do that, but I don't like to play trends, but this has worked, I guess. But then again, in 20, 30 years, is this going to be 57% or is it going to be 50%? I wouldn't bank on these trends, but some trends do work for whatever reasons, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not much of a trends person. You could find trends to back a lot of things.
You can also data mine anything and
exactly.
Like 24-0 against the spread. Wow, this is great. Right. And then it's like 0-24 the next 24 iterations. So yeah, it's like there are only a few trends I buy, like Thursday night teams coming off an overtime, like that makes sense, but generally I don't like these trends either. All right, so Monday Night Football, we have Texans, the Cowboys. This line is 7.5. This is another bad quarterback against a good team. The Texans have struggled lately, but that's not been their defense. It's been their offense. The defense is still 10th. So D'Amico Ryan's still a very good defensive coach against Dallas's offense, which is so dreadful right now. They can't block. They can't throw. They can't run. Like the only thing they have is CeeDee Lamb, and he's banged up. Dallas's defense got Parsons back, but it's not enough. They can't stop the run. And as we know, the Texans run at the highest clip in the NFL on early downs. Joe Mixon, it's going to be Joe Mixon over and over again in this game, and the Texans are just going to run the ball down Dallas's throat. Texans are going to move the ball pretty well, and they're almost certainly going to have Nico Collins back. So assuming that happens, I like the Texans a lot here. I don't see how Dallas competes. and I think Jerry Jones is embarrassed again on a national stage. So give me Houston minus 7.5. Who do you like here?
Yeah, you can take Houston minus 17.5 because this is one of those gifts right now that you need to take advantage of week in, week out until the season's over or until somehow they adjust these lines accordingly. This is one of the worst teams in football. This is the worst coach in football with no NFL quarterback. Cooper Rush, not an NFL quarterback. 23 dropbacks, 45 yards. That's hard to accomplish. They might as well go to Trey Lance, who they traded a 4th-round pick for. I mean, he'll be in the XFL or CFL soon, but what do they have to lose at this point? You have a lame duck coach. I think, what did Jerry Jones say today? I don't believe we will be making a coaching change during the season.
Yeah.
Everyone knows he's not the coach next year. So there's not going to be the high level of preparation that's needed for an NFL game. So you have this team right now that I said this last week when I said the best game on the board was Philly, laying whatever you want to lay because the game was going to be a rout. And I'm going to say it again now. This game is going to be a blowout. You have a Houston team that obviously nearby proximity-wise. You have a Houston team that played like ass last week. They scored 0 points in the second half. They blew a big lead on national TV. They were horrible. Stroud was bad. Again, Stroud was bad. Their offensive line couldn't block. He's been taking sacks last couple of games. So you have a really good get-right team for Houston right now to bounce back. Dallas at home. Okay, we said this last week. I'm going to add to it now. They're now 0-4. They've been outscored 153 to 59. That's almost 100 points of differential in 4 games. Going back to last year's playoff game at home against Green Bay, that's now 5 straight home games where they've trailed by 20-plus points. 20-plus points at home. Okay, at least good news for Dallas is there's no sun. This is a night game, right? So there's no glare.
The moon, though. It might be full moon.
Which is hilarious. Okay. The fans are booing them. They're getting booed out of the building. The team is not prepared. The team is not playing hard for the coach, who doesn't belong in the NFL. The quarterback doesn't belong in the NFL. They have no run game. Their secondary is dreadful. They have now given up what's their defensive yards? They're like 29th in defense overall. And they're last, number 32 against the pass. If Nico Collins comes back, this is a get-right spot for Stroud. I compared a game earlier, Houston, New England. This is similar to that. Houston's putting up 40 because when they score 23 in the first half, here's what I can guarantee you. I guarantee you they don't score 0 in the second half. Mm-hmm. Okay? So this is one of those games like we did last week, like I said to you on this podcast a week ago tonight. When Dallas gets down, you continue to bet against them. They stink. They won't score. They're going to put up 6, maybe 9 points. They're going to lose this. They're going to be down by 20 at some point again. They're going to get blown out. And you know what? They're going to get blown out next week. And they're going to get blown out the week after because this team has now quit. They've quit on the coach. What is their schedule coming up? You know who they play next week? This is bad for them. They play Washington, who's on extra rest. And they're going to be on short rest.
I was going to ask you about that line. It's minus 10 on the advanced.
Yeah, I made it 10.5. I wrote it down. I made it 10.5. They're going to get embarrassed next week by Washington, who's going to be coming off of 2 losses, who's going to want to kill them. Washington's going to kill them next week. Then they play home against Thanksgiving. Oh, my God. This was my mistake last week, laying points with Daniel Jones. I don't know who should be favored in this game. I don't know where to move Dallas. Right now I have Dallas, number 31. I have Carolina right behind them. Right now I have the Giants like 4 points better than Dallas. So does that mean Giants are going to be favored in Dallas on Thanksgiving Day? That's wild. But you know what? That's warranted. I wonder if the Giants come out and I don't know. That really stinks for America that we have to sit on one of the best days of the year and watch the Giants. We're going to watch the Lions blow out the Bears, and then we're going to watch the Giants-Cowboys game. Who's the night game on Thanksgiving? Maybe it's somebody good.
Packers Dolphins.
Okay. No, it's not. It's Packers. No, Packers Dolphins is Friday.
That's the Black Friday game. Yeah.
Oh no, the night game is Kansas City at home against the Raiders. My goodness.
Oh God. Okay.
Well, I'm still gonna watch football for 9 hours on Sunday on Thanksgiving, but that's a bad stretch of football. That's tough. But take advantage now while you can with Mike McCarthy and Cooper Rush, and no defense and no run game, and teams that just want to embarrass this team. This is a free game. I know, you had Andy on who said, you got to be able to make a case for every team. I'm sorry. Sometimes the books, you just can't make the lines big enough when you have teams that quit that are poorly coached in this situation, this line can't be 7.5. Actually, my computer, I made this line 9.5. And I'm like, at what number am I taking Dallas? I know I'm live betting Houston, whatever the score is. If they're behind, I'm live betting Houston. If they're tied, I'm live betting Houston. If they're ahead, I'm still live betting Houston. This is one of those games where I'm going into the game. And yeah, okay, sometimes you lose, right? It's any given Sunday or Monday, and sometimes you lose. Obviously, be careful, be disciplined. Don't chase bad milk. If you're down, it doesn't pay to keep chasing. You have your number, have your comfort level. But this is the game where you go into ready to fire. And this is a blowout. And this is the perfect spot, perfect situation for Stroud to get right, for Collins to get back. And I just think this game is going to be another massacre. And we're going to say Dallas next week, oh, they're at home. They're down by now. Instead of 100 points, they're down by 125 points. So flex that game to Ukraine, Cowboys, Panthers. Yeah.
Slava NFL. Let's go.
Funny. But no, that's the truth right now. You have probably the worst team in the league, in the worst situation of the league against a really good team coming off losses, back-to-back losses in a get-right spot. And I fully expect this to be another 34-6 type of game, just like last week against Philly. And I expect the same thing next week with Washington. I can tell you right now, Jane Daniels doesn't get hurt. Hope God forbid he gets hurt this week. Stay healthy, everybody. It's going to be another massacre with extra rest to boot. So Dallas is going to lose by 60 points in the next two games. And the spread, you can't make the spread 17.5, but that's what it should be. Because maybe there I give some pause.
Yeah, at one point, it's like hypothetical. You never do this, and it's not possible. But at one point, what point do you bet your house on Dallas? Like what number, right? So hypothetically, you got plus 84, right?
Right. We talked about
I know, right?
We talked about that with Carolina.
Yeah. And so, at what number would you be comfortable betting everything on Dallas? Like, is it plus 52?
No, I wouldn't bet my house plus 52.
Well, 84 you would, right?
Yeah, because it's very hard to score 84 points in a 60-minute game.
Exactly. So what's the number? I'm just curious. Is it 63?
What's the biggest score margin? I mean, last year we saw Denver and
70 to
Miami. What was it, 70 to something?
70-10, yeah.
Okay, so
60, 63?
I'm not betting plus 60 with these types of teams. I have no desire. This coach will fake punt down 31-3. He'll fake punt on 4th and 15 from his 26-yard line.
Yep.
And then he'll look confused on the sidelines. He is an abysmal coach. He's got no players now. And you have a team, you have the worst scenario possible across the board. You have the worst coach with maybe the worst quarterback, with zero run game, with a defense that quit, with receivers who are hurt, with players that don't prepare. Is Dallas coming to work today, right? Yesterday is a rest day. Are they coming to their facility today ready to get started, ready to pound film, ready to study their mistakes, ready to walk in tomorrow 5:30 in the morning and game plan? Absolutely not. There's a mentality that just doesn't exist. The coaches are bad to begin with. And on the other side, you have Houston that just blew a game. They're going home and they're 23 points. They're already home, 23 points, and they scored 0 in the second half. Now, they don't have to win these games. They've pretty much locked up their division, but at some point, you've just lost 2 games in a row. You better start winning some games. So there's no look away. There's no look ahead. It's a Monday Night Football in Jerry World. They want to make a statement. So the best of every scenario. If they lose this game, right? If they lose this game, they're frauds. Houston's a bad. If you believe Houston is a bad team, a bad football team that's not going to be a playoff contender, it's going to continuously lose, and they just go on a streak right now where they lose 7 of 8 or whatever it is, great. They're a bad football team. And we'll watch a bad football game on Thanksgiving with the Giants and the Cowboys. This is not that. Houston, I don't believe, is that. So perfect situation. You have to be on Houston in this game. Anything under 10 points, have to be on Houston. Just like last week, I said you have to be on Philly. I hate laying points. It's square. It's public. It's too easy. But tell us how you really feel. I'm going to make a lot of money on Monday night, just like we made a lot of money on Sunday. I can't tell you how many live bets I have. Once you're playing with equity, right? I have Eagles going to the game, teaser, Eagles spread. Then I'm laying 13.5. And the game was close, by the way, at halftime. Mm-hmm. And I'm still betting the game live. And at halftime, I'm betting Dallas team total under. I'm betting the Eagles with the points. At some point, we end it. But you have all of a sudden you have all this equity in the game. It's like, all right, I'll keep going. So, and you got a standalone game Monday night. You got to go into that game ready to fire away. Get a couple of apps ready to go, load them up, and make some money. And if you lose, I'll come on the show on Tuesday night next week, broke, without a house. But
right, yeah. Hopefully you're still in your house.
Yeah,
at that point. I've always
exactly.
said that like the worst teams in the first half of the season are like the young teams, that are just really bad. Like you have the Carolinas this year, Tennessee, and so forth. But the worst teams in the second half of the year are those teams that had expectations heading into the year, or the veteran teams that have no hope.
Exactly.
Dallas, Jacksonville, these teams, even the Raiders to an extent, they have no hope and they have no reason to try. And I think you said it perfectly. Like, is Dallas going to head into the week be like, yeah, let's get this, let's prepare? Like, no, like
Right.
half the team's probably checked out. The young guys, I assume, are going to be playing hard or working hard, but the veterans, like they're not playing hard. Ezekiel Elliott, like I think quiet quit or something. He didn't show up to a practice or he overslept, and yet he's still active for some reason.
No, he got suspended for a game.
For one game, and then
Yeah.
and then he featured him at the goal line. It's like,
Right, and he fumbled into the end zone.
right, exactly. So like, what? This team is just ridiculous.
Yeah, they're a mess. They're a mess. You got to, and this is where you got to take advantage, right? You don't have to bet Eagles, Redskins. That's a great football game. Enjoy the game. You don't have to tease it. You just watch it. If you want to bet it live, great. That's in game. If you're a football fan, enjoy the game. If you want to make money, just wait till Monday night. Otherwise, that's not a football game to enjoy. I mean, that's for football crazy people like you and me who are going to sit and watch any game, no matter what, no matter who they put on TV in whatever country they put it on at whatever time of day, right? You put a game at 3:00 in the morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to watch it or stay up and watch it.
Mm.
But this is the game where you just take advantage and do it live, do it slowly. I'm not saying to take your unit. If your unit's $100, I'm not suggesting you put $10,000 on a game or $1,000 on a game. Bet it, but keep betting it. Ladder it as the game goes on, and then you'll, if you're a Texans fan, you don't have to do that. You enjoy the blowouts when they happen, and if you want to laugh, bet against Mike McCarthy in Dallas constantly throughout the game, and you'll very much enjoy that game. How bad was the slate on Sunday at 4:30? One game was worse than the next. You look over on my TV on the left had the Jets game, like that's 31-6. The Dallas game is on my middle TV. That's 31-6. And then I'm okay. The best game of the day is Titans Chargers. Best game of the hour. I don't even want to watch that game. That's a terrible football game. So I'm like, okay, well, might as well live bet Philly. Might as well live bet the Cardinals here. So that's what I was doing from 4:30 to 7, just live betting the Eagles.
Yeah, Jim Nantz even said it during the broadcast. He's like, welcome those who just saw a one-sided affair in that Jets Cardinals game. We have a one-sided affair here too.
Yeah, I heard that. That was funny. And Romo was so sad.
Yeah,
he was like he didn't know what to say.
Well, then that one sign said "Put in Romo."
Yeah, he said, loosen up the arm.
That was funny. Speculation: 49ers Bills for Week 13. Well, we have Chiefs of Bills, and that's Bills minus 2.5. So I assume 3. What do you think?
Niners versus Bills. I have the Niners and the Bills. Actually, no, I have the Bills as 1 point better.
Okay.
I have the Bills 1 point better. That game is in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I have Bills as a 2-point home. So my number in that game would be Bills minus 3. I would probably shade it towards 2.5.
Okay.
That's interesting because Bills now Chiefs are 2.5.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah. So you would think that the books would make that game more than 3, or I'm sorry, more than 2.5.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are certainly better than the Niners. But it really depends what happens this week. If the Bills win big, if the Bills win 27-20, 28-24, win and cover in a good game, I see no reason why the Bills would come less than 3 in that game. If the Bills lose outright, then maybe it's closer to a pick-up. Now the Niners before that game, they play in Green Bay. So that's a huge game for the Niners, especially when you factor in potential wild card tiebreaker situation. The next 2 weeks for the Niners are huge. I mean, they're in a dogfight right now in the NFC West, so they have to win these games. And Buffalo also, by the way, they're going into a bye after this game. So I'm rooting for if Buffalo goes into this game, goes into that Niner game, coming off of a bye and a win against the Chiefs, that's a bad spot for Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I was going to ask if the Washington loses to the Eagles by like 7 or more, and you can get a Cowboy, you get Redskins -9.5 against Dallas instead of the 10. You take it. I think I would bet it in advance because if Dallas gets blown out here, that line could shoot.
I don't want to bet it in advance because you run the risk of injury. And
I'm saying after the Thursday game is over, and if Washington loses by 7 or more, obviously there's no more risk to Washington injuries. So
yeah, I mean, this is where you could take advantage, and it's nice to look at advanced lines. If you know the line right now is 10.5, and that's what it should be on paper, and you're getting better than that for a reason that because they didn't look good, whatever happened throughout the game, that's where the public makes their adjustments in their mind. The books are not going to adjust. Usually something dramatic would have to happen. If Washington falls beneath 10, then you bet it.
Mm-hmm.
I have the extra rest against a team coming on short rest. It starts and ends there. Extra rest, but we've seen that now a few times, and it's worked in our favor. And again, Dallas just doesn't have the team. I think that game is going to be an absolute massacre also, because that's another game where, like the Eagles, Washington, they don't like Dallas. Nobody likes Dallas.
Yeah.
Only Dallas fans like Dallas. So I think these are some weeks where we have an opportunity to play this team, and they're going to find themselves dogs at home on Thanksgiving against the freaking Giants. That's sick.
Yeah, man, that's gonna be crazy.
I can't wait to discuss that one. Like, all right, are we laying points with Daniel Jones or Drew Lock in a short week in Dallas? Can Malik Neighbors get a sun visor before the game? So
yeah,
God, that's a tough Thanksgiving day. That is a shame. I love Thanksgiving. That's a bad day.
It used to be not the case that the Lions game used to be. The Lions game used to be the worst game, and then you had to persevere through that one. Then you had 2 great ones. It's the opposite this year. Although that first game isn't great either, but still, it looks like the best one on the slate right now. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching and commenting. Really appreciate it. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below. Share this video. This is the link in the description of the merch store, and especially thank you so much to Cam McNeagle for the $4.99 super chat. John Sanders for $11 super chat, and Frizzle with the $2 super sticker. You guys are so awesome. Just really appreciate it so much. Evan, do you have any final thoughts or anything to plug here?
No, I think we went over it all. We noticed last week, bounce back week for the dogs, right? Week before, It was pretty crazy towards the favorite. Last week, dogs bounced back. I did say before last week that there's going to be a regression to the mean. Favorites were 55% going into the week. That was a halfway point of the season. And I'd be very confident that dogs now fall into the above 50% and get that that dog favorite split closer to 50-50. We kind of see this every single year. So we'll see what happens here this week. I'm kind of on a mix here, pretty balanced dog to favorite. So obviously we got to see injury reports and see where this is going. But no, I'm not putting all my money on the Cowboys or the Eagles yet. We'll wait till Monday night for that. But no, there's a couple of games that we like here. We talked about. I don't love the games this week. Last week I liked the games a lot more. Rams, I'm leaning towards. Lions, Vikings, these are the favorites. Not in love with some of the dogs like the Colts, Bengals, and Falcons. So I really, really liked last week my top 5 or 6, which ended up going 4-2 in my top 6. This week, I'm not so sure yet. I have a couple of maybes, but yeah, I'm expecting that dog balance, that favorite dog balance, to edge back towards the underdog.
Best teaser play, I think Atlanta and Houston. I think maybe Cleveland if you get plus 7.5. Like do 3 of those. Do like 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and then 2 and 3.
If you want to get real crazy, whatever game you like, you can kind of box with Houston.
Yeah.
Right. Just go straight down the board. I like 6 games. Good. Every single one of them with Houston tied to Monday night.
Nice.
And then if you get nervous, play your Cowboys plus 7.5, something like that to kind of mitigate some of your risk. or go into the game knowing that you have Houston basically -1 and let it ride. But I don't usually play that way. So I wouldn't listen. You always have to stay disciplined. It's the most important thing when you're betting games is to maintain discipline because crazy things happen. It's a 1-game sample. So maintain discipline. I write everything down. I have thousands of line items in Excel spreadsheet. So everything for me, it's all starts with discipline and numbers. You could you can know NFL more than anybody else, but if you don't know how to balance yourself, discipline yourself, understand the odds, you're not going to win long term. So be careful. Just because we love a game, and I love a game, especially Texans to win, it doesn't mean you're going to win, right? I believe that you're going to win this game at a very high ratio, very high clip, but it's not 100%. So you don't bet your house on anything. It's important to stay disciplined. That said, you're going to win this week to Houston.
Yeah, absolutely.
-1.5. Great. Tease everything, tie it to Houston. And if you don't like your position on Monday night, first of all, you can always buy out mid-game. You can always see how the game's going and hedge out mid-game. Or you can go into the game with a small risk getting the odds on Dallas, either with the spread or on the money line or both. But that's the way I would go if I'm playing teasers. But I don't really like 6-7 point teasers that much. And this week also, I don't think there's a lot of value this week on teasers. I think you're better off playing the games straight.
Yeah. Tomorrow, people asking tomorrow. Kenny is off tomorrow. He's going to be back next week. We have a guest. We have a replacement for Kenny next week, or tomorrow, I should say. Tomorrow. So tune in for that. We're going to start a little bit earlier tomorrow, around like 9:30ish. Just schedule wise, that's the only way it would work. But get your fantasy questions ready. Tomorrow's our fantasy rundown for Week 11. So any questions, prepare for that, and then we'll review every game from last week and look at the fantasy stuff. Thursday, we'll be back with Andy discussing the Thursday thoughts for the Week 11 picks. And Saturday, Tom's going to be on for the final thoughts for the Week 11 picks. Plus the Mega Man 2 playoff bracket. We'll see Tom's thoughts on that. So, and then as usual next week as well. So once again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and have a great night. I'll talk to you later.